Line drive, belted to left. Wood turns, it's gone. Contreras hits a big home run. Fly ball well hit right center field at the warning track wall. Contreras ties it again.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, a nice overall weekend for the Cardinals. Don't look at the game on Saturday. Doesn't matter. The Cardinals end up doing what they've been doing. They're splitting series. They're winning series. They've done that basically every time going back to Mother's Day. Alex, in that stretch of games, they have the best record in the National League, second best record overall in Major League Baseball. And yesterday, the big right-handed bats were coming through. That audio courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest. It's good to be back with you guys after a very extended holiday weekend, 4th of July weekend. Did you have a good one, Alex?
I had a great one. I'm just happy to have adult interaction because I have been locked up with a 3-year-old doing potty training from Friday on. So if I make any reference to pee-pee or poo-poo today, you'll forgive me.
We had, I think at this point we're done with birthday celebrations.
Oh, yeah. Did you enjoy bringing all 800 people over to your house and spending all the money?
That was last weekend.
Oh, sorry. I don't keep up with you.
We went to a church gym, so it wasn't my house, but it was great. This past weekend, though, it was officially his birthday. We did the birthday party the weekend before. This weekend was his birthday. He's insane. He decided now that I am 1 year old, I am climbing on everything. It's just a constant battle to be around him in some way. And at any time, he could be falling down. He could be climbing up.
You remember like 9 months ago?
God only knows.
You remember like 9 months ago, T-Bone, where BK was like, man, I think Luca thinks I'm boring because we don't do anything. He's like, I feel bored because we don't do anything.
I miss it so much.
Now this is BK. No, don't go over there. No, don't go over there. No.
So we have covers for our stove. Like the turns, we have the gas stove, so you can turn
they
the
can
dials,
manipulate those.
So we have covers for that, so that way he can't do anything with it. But we were over at Kara's parents' place yesterday, and they do not have those, and he's almost tall enough now to be able to reach up and grab them. And I was like, no, please don't.
Keep him aware because before we put ours on, Emma turned the knob, and it was just leaking gas into our house for like an hour, and we're like, what's that smell?
All right,
our house.
So that's what the weekend was like. T-Bone, did you have a good weekend?
I just watched some baseball,
all 10 fingers?
chilled, drank some beers.
All 10 fingers?
Yeah.
From fireworks? You didn't blow anything out?
I didn't blow anything off.
Big firework guy.
Oh.
Turns out fireworks, super cool.
Me,
Adelaide, not big
firework guy.
Yeah, I hate fireworks. We could do that for the junk drawer today.
All right, we'll get into that later on today. However, right now we're going to talk a little bit of baseball because your Cardinals continue to play winning ball overall. However, they continue to have a terrible run differential. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Alex, the right-handed bats starting to heat up a little bit. Wilson Contreras, that's the highlights you just heard. Over the past 6 games, he's 8 for 25. He has a couple of doubles, 3 home runs, 5 walks, 8 RBIs. He's looking like himself again. Nolan Arenado over the weekend started to heat up a little bit. Paul Goldschmidt has been much better of late as well. Are you buying what we're seeing with the right-handed bats? Is this something that can be real for them?
I'm buying one of those 3.
Okay.
And it's Wilson Contreras. To me, he looks like the guy that he was before he fractured his arm and was out for the amount of time. I didn't think that was going to come back as fast as it did. But obviously when Wilson Contreras when the dude told the Cardinals like, "Hey, I'm good to go." I'm like, "Wilson, we just put the metal plate in your arm." Like, "No, I'm good." He's using his metal plate as the bat, but he looks like the guy that I can believe in. He looks like that middle-of-the-order bat. He looks like an MVP caliber type of player. That one I buy all of the stock, and I'm throwing all of my money into. Don't try and sell me the stock of Nolan Arenado, because I've been here before. You've tried to sell it to me in the first month against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and guess what? That flatlined. You tried to sell it to me last week, or last month. I think it was against the Diamondbacks again, if I'm not mistaken. Flatlined. I'm happy Nolan Arenado's hitting, but to me, it's all a facade. It's, hey, look, he's hot, and then it's going to fall off.
It's all batted ball luck. That's all it is.
And Paul Goldschmidt has just been straight down the middle. The problem is there's just no pop with Paul Goldschmidt.
Goldie's weird, man. You watch the games, you're like, all right, Paul Goldschmidt, not as bad as he was. And then you look at the numbers, you're like, dude, Paul Goldschmidt's been the same dude every month so far this year. There has been no high. There has been no low. It's just this.
And still can't hit with runners in scoring position, which is just so odd.
Paul Goldschmidt OPS by month so far this year. April/March, 640. And then from there, 680, 640, 612. This is who he is, man. Paul Goldschmidt is not heating up. It is not getting a whole lot better. His batting average isn't getting above 240 in any individual month. His slugging percentage has not been above 400 so far this year in any individual month. This is who he is. I think we need to stop talking about him as if it's going to get better. The underlying number all suggests he's going to be fine. And then you watch the games, you're like, he's not going to be fine. So let's set him aside. Let's set him into a different category. Arenado's interesting to me.
Don't do it,
and
man.
the reason I'm not buying it, I do not believe what we're watching. But the reason that he's so interesting to me is because there's no power here in his bat. Like, nothing there has changed at all. And I don't know if it's something physically where he's just not the same guy. He had this really interesting quote yesterday to Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Quote, "My goal is to get to the All-Star break. God willing, healthy, and feeling a tide turning. That's my own goal. I care about winning and helping this team win, and this first half ending the right way. Hopefully, just having that tide turn, regardless of hits, regardless of results, I want to perform. I want to drive in runs." That'd be nice. The Cardinals could really use that right now. Sorry, that was editorial.
He's trying.
That's never going to change, but my goal is to get to the break, hopefully feeling like I'm going somewhere. He then continued, "We all have excuses, but nobody really cares to hear them. This isn't the first time I've played through something. Your whole career, you deal with things. I think at the end of the day, you realize your opponent doesn't care. So you have to go out there, give everything you have. My goal is to make sure that I go into the break feeling okay, and I'm heading somewhere." All of that courtesy of Derek Gould's piece earlier today on Nolan Arenado. He clearly is not physically at 100%. I don't know where he's at on that spectrum of 0 to 100, but it ain't 100. I don't think many players on the Cardinals are at 100 right now, though. The difference is many of them are producing and Nolan Arenado has not. His batting average is back up to 270. His OPS now is at the league average, despite a slugging percentage that is still below 400. So my question is this. Can this team get enough production from Nolan Arenado without that slugging percentage going up? Or does it necessitate him getting to the power? Because he's hitting for average again, guys. He has 2, 2, and 4 hits over his last 3 games. That is nice to have in your lineup, but it is not the version of Nolan Arenado that we all expected him to be. So where are you at on that, Alex?
I mean, if Wilson Contreras is hitting like this, and if you get this version of Nolan Gorman for the month, then you can survive without the power from Nolan Arenado. I think it all really comes down to where you place him in the batting order, because if you're going to keep him in that 4 spot, and I think over the weekend it really was mostly hitting in the 5 spot, going back and forth a little bit, I think you have to commit, if this is who he is, hitting in the 5 or 6 hole, not putting him in the 4 hole, not keeping him back in the 4 or 5 spot. You need to keep him in a spot where you're not putting him in there when guys are on base and you need to start scoring runs. Because if you're just going off of contact, then just use this guy as a great on base. But if everyone else is hitting to the power that you expect with Contreras, with Gorman, Burleson, what he's been accomplishing, even with a little of Mason Wynn and Brendan Donovan, yeah, you can survive. But there's a whole lot of ifs with 4 or 5 guys that need to hit for you not to worry about Nolan Arenado's power.
In his last 100 plate appearances, he's batting .315 with an on-base percentage of .365 and a slugging percentage of .410. Like, even when stuff is going right on one side of things, it's still the power that's sapping down. He has 2 home runs in his last 30 games. He's not hitting for any power. It's just gone. Like, the thing that made Nolan Arenado who he was, a future Hall of Fame third baseman, was defense, power. Defense, power. 30 home runs, 100 RBIs every single season. And in his last 30 games, you look at it, it's 2 home runs and 11 RBIs. So the two numbers that he always looks to for his production output, right? If you just paste that out over a season, it's 11 home runs and a 60 RBI season. That is a slap-hitting, good defense type of a third baseman. That's not who he's supposed to be, but if you've got a third baseman in this version of Major League Baseball that's batting around 300 the rest of the way, there is some value in that. And he is an above league average hitter right now with this version of himself hitting for a high average. T-Bone, is that good enough?
No, it's not good enough, because he is what should be a 3-headed monster from the right side in terms of slugging, and they're not getting it but from one, and that is Wilson Contreras. They're going to struggle against left-handed pitching when it comes to October and the rest of the season if he doesn't start hitting for power. And they need to be about a top 10 offense across baseball in terms of slugging percentage to be a threat in October, and right now they sit at 19th. And the big reason for that is because they're not getting power from Nolan Arenado, and they're not getting power from Paul Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt, I'm writing off and saying, you know what, he's going to be the guy that we've seen so far this year. Arenado, I'm writing off, but I'm going to at least give him a week or two after the All-Star break to say, okay, are you dealing with something that is significantly tapping your power? After the All-Star break, you should be back to close to full health, and if you are, and the power's still not there, then we could write him off and write him off as what he is right now, which is what you just said, a slap-hitting average third baseman. He needs to be more than that for the St. Louis Cardinals to be able to get to October and to win in October.
T-Bone mentioned their issues against left-handed pitching. They're going up against another lefty starter later on this afternoon in Washington, going for the series win. And they will have another lefty available to them today as well. Left-handed, predominantly lefty lineup is getting a little bit more lefty heavy, with Lars Nootbaar being activated from the 10-day injured list. Jose Fermin has been optioned down to Memphis. Newt is officially making his return to
What are they going to do with that utility guy that they can use in any situation against left-handed pitchers?
They don't have a whole lot of options right now against lefties. And I thought coming into the season that wasn't going to be a problem, because I looked at it and you're like, hey, look at the middle of their order. It's all righties. Jordan Walker, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt. These guys crush left-handed pitching. What's the problem? Even your lefties, a lot of them are pretty good against left-handed pitching. Brendan Donovan, good against lefties. Lars Nootbaar, good against lefties. The righties haven't been good against lefties this year, so it's been a bit of a problem.
It's all fine.
They're bottom 3 in Major League Baseball in OPS against left-handed pitching. We'll get into that later on today. He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys want to get involved in the show, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to do exactly that. You can always check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. In about 15 minutes, we got to talk about my Missouri Tigers, boys, because Eli Drinkwitz is making me dream a little bit about what it can be to be a Missouri fan with him at the helm. We'll get into that coming up at 11:30. Coming up next, though, you guys know I'm a believer in this Cardinals team. I think they're a top 3, maybe top 4 team in the National League at worst. They have the best record in the National League since Mother's Day. They have won, I think it's 38 of their last 50 games. That being said, they've got a terrible run differential right now. 3rd worst run differential in the National League, bottom 8 in all of Major League Baseball. So how do we analyze a team that has this kind of a run differential when they are this kind of good over their last 50 games? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care, taking care of your HVAC system, a company that my family has used for pretty much since my dad has owned his house that he lives in now. I've used them for both of my houses for the maintenance program, taking care of our HVAC system. And let me talk about what they do, because what they're able to accomplish is keep my old unit working. Now, of course, it hit the the end a couple of weeks ago where we had to have them come out and fix it. But for 3 years, they were able to take care of my 26-year-old air conditioning unit to get my family through the hot summer, the cold winter. They're always available for you. And when the maintenance program, they come out twice a year to check it, fine-tune it, clean it, give you kind of some instructions to keep it clean throughout the year. And then they'll come back out the next time around and take care of it for you. And don't believe just me. You could see the hundreds of reviews that are up on their Google Plus rating. This one from Hannah. My heat went out and they were able to send Eric out that same day, even though I was the last stop of the day. He took time to diagnose, fix the problem while explaining the issue to me. So check him out today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you and get someone who's able to take care of your HVAC system. Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Hot shot into left field, a base hit. It's 9-3. Arenado is 2 for 2. Line drive into center field. It's a 4-hit night for Arenado. He is coming on, folks. Hammer toward left. That's going to get down front. 2-run hit. Arenado comes through. More 2-out magic for the Cardinals in the 5th inning. It's a 3-run frame and a 4-run lead.
So what it sounded like over the weekend via Bally Sports Midwest as the Cardinals win a couple of games. They now are 32-18 over their last 50 games, Alex. That is the best record in the National League. Only the Cleveland Guardians have a better record over their last 50 games than the Cardinals do. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, the difference, though, is the Guardians over their last, this is 48 games for them, the stretch of time that the Cardinals have won 32 out of 50. The Guardians have outscored their opponents in that stretch by 62 runs. The Cardinals have outscored their opponents by 13. 13 runs. And they are 32-18.
Been a lot bigger without
that math
Saturday.
ain't mathin'. And over the course of the season, the Cardinals are a significant negative in the run differential category. Now, this is not the end-all be-all, but it is something that a lot of people will look to of, okay, you've outscored your opponents by how many runs? Well, this is what you would typically expect that team to be. The Cardinals this year, if you just look at their expected run differential or their expected record based on their run differential, they should be under 500, which speaks to the way that they win. Alex, they have the 3rd worst run differential in the National League, 8th worst in all of Major League Baseball. There isn't a single other team with a negative run differential right now in Major League Baseball that is at or above 500, except for your St. Louis Cardinals. We're about to play their 90th game. Today will be their 90th game of this season. The only other teams in Major League Baseball
This is always a fun game to play.
That are at least negative 30 in terms of their run differential, which is where the Cardinals are at. That ended up making the playoffs. It's not a high bar to clear. Just can you get into the playoffs when you're this bad in your run differential at this point of the season?
Especially because everybody gets in.
The 2021 Cardinals, the 2017 Twins, The 2012 Orioles, the 2007 Diamondbacks, the 97 Giants, the 84 and 81 Royals. 7 teams in baseball history have been this bad in run differential at this point of the season and went on to make the postseason.
You know, my follow-up question is going to be, how did these teams do in the playoffs, BK?
There have been 5 that were as bad in run differential as the Cardinals are at this point in the season and ended up getting to the DS.
Yes.
Oh,
That'd
baby!
be a playoff series win.
Wild card series!
One has made it beyond the CS. The 2013 Dodgers made it to the NLCS after going 92 and 70. They were a negative 19 run differential at this point in the season. The 2015 Mets, ladies and gentlemen, were a negative 3 run differential at this point in the season. They went to the World Series and lost in 5 games against the Kansas City Royals. That's
pitching.
it.
Do you have the run differential for all of those teams, though? Because if -3 is what it was compared to -39, there's a little bit of a problem. One of these things is not like the other.
Negative 27 for the Rockies in 2018. Negative 25 for the Rangers in 2015. They both went to the DS. Negative 3 for the Mets. I mentioned they went to the World Series. Negative 19 for the Dodgers in 2013. They went to the NLCS. And negative 57 for the 2012 Orioles.
Jesus.
They ended up going to the DS. They lost in 5 games. They did win 93 games that season, though. So it can be done. It's been done before. It can be done again. The advent of the third wild card certainly helps the Cardinals' case as well. There will be more teams in the future that look like this Cardinals team than have in the past because there are more opportunities to get into the playoffs, have a bad month, run differential plummets, and then you end up getting better because of that. However, Alex, is hard. It's really hard to win this way. And the reason why people look at run differential is because over time, the vast majority of the teams that are outscored by their opponents end up being bad teams or don't do anything in the postseason for the most part. So how does the run differential for the Cardinals, which is negative 39 right now, influence the way that you view this team?
I mean, it influences it to the point where I believe they're an average team. I think the run differential speaks to who they are. I can pretty much predict how a series is going to go for the Cardinals. Let's say a 4-game series. 3 of those 4 are going to be 1-run games to where the Cardinals score early, the other team comes back and has a flurry of runs late. They go to the bullpen and Ryan Helsley locks things down and you win a game. And then the hope is that you can rise that negative run differential like what you did where you put 4, 5, 6 more runs up than the competition like yesterday when you won 8-3. But guess what? There's always that one game in the series by this Cardinals team where it's 14-6 or 17-2 through the opposition that sways it back the other way. It's an average team. That's what we've been saying for so long. There's no, we're going to blow this team out of the water. And when you play the bottom dwellers in the National League or the American League, you're not even blowing them out of the water. You're having to go to extras with them because you can't score all the runs. So what it tells me, how it sways my decision, this team is bleeped if they lose Ryan Helsley. That's my narrative with the Cardinals, because the only way they are winning baseball games, we saw Sonny Gray get blown up, Lance Lynn get blown up, and Kyle Gibson have an okay start.
He's good for like 4 innings. Really good for 4 innings.
Well, I think I could say that for all of these starting pitchers. Like, they're good for about 4 innings, and then from there, who knows? The only way you're going to be able to do any damage and be like these teams that get to past a wild card round and maybe to a DS is if Ryan Helsley stays healthy and is elite for you from start to finish, because that's the only way this Cardinals team knows how to win.
You know, it's funny, and T-Bone, I'm curious your thoughts on this as well. Like, people are talking about how the Cardinals have this like terrible pitching staff and stuff. It's just not true, man. For the most part, they've been okay in the pitching department.
The rotation's been good.
They've been average.
Lance Lynn, not even average. They're like top 10 in Major League Baseball in most categories when it comes to pitching. The blow up with Lance Lynn really threw these numbers out of whack because he gave up all of the runs, and that makes everything look worse for them. But for the most part this season, up until that Lance Lynn start, they were top 10 on almost every statistical category when it came to their pitching. Their pitching's been really good. The offense has been the problem for this team. They're not slugging at all, and that makes it really difficult to run away with games. Their problem is they win every game like 4-3, 4-2. Everything feels really hard for this team. They've got to be great on the bases. They've got to be excellent defensively. They need their pitching to hold up the way that it has all season long, for the most part. And if they do all of those things, they'll win games. But when one of those things falters in any individual game, you get bad base running. You have some spots where you don't come through with runners in scoring position. You have a couple of bad at-bats in a big spot. You have a defensive blunder, whatever. It really is a glaring problem for this team because they need everything to go well in every game. Their margin for error is just so slim. And so that's where they're at right now, and that's why the run differential stuff I do think matters. It makes it harder over time to win this way. I do think this team is capable of continuing to win this way. I don't think having this negative run differential suddenly means like they're screwed, they can't do anything, they're a bad baseball team. I don't feel that way. We've seen it for 50 games that they're a really good baseball team. It just becomes harder for them to win than like the Phillies or the Braves at times when they're scoring a bunch of runs with their loaded lineup, or the Dodgers. It's a really hard way to win.
Yeah, to me, the run differential number doesn't change a lot of the way I think of this team because I knew the offense wasn't very good. I've known that for the last month and a half. And when you don't have a good offense, what happens? Well, games are going to be close when you win, and when you lose, there's going to be blow-ups. Every team has blow-ups with their pitching staff. You saw it with Lance Lynn over the weekend. But it just reaffirms for me that your offense isn't good enough. And I actually think that they can continue with this model in terms of can they get to October with a negative run differential? They probably can because they're winning the one-run games. They're 17-12 in one-run games. That's where it matters. And what did Skip Schumacher tell us? I think it was 2 years ago when the Marlins were winning a bunch of one-run games. Well, point to a team like that, and you can say you got a good bullpen. Well, I can point to the St. Louis Cardinals and say they've got a good bullpen, and they've got an okay rotation. You know, Kyle Gibson's not something to write home about as like a number 2 starter in October, but he's really good in the regular season so far. Sonny Gray's an ace. I think what it shows me is that their offense just isn't capable of putting up big performances, but it's good enough to still keep you in games. For example, like it's a race to 3. If you can get to 3 first and you can have that lead by the end of the 6th or the 5th, boom, Cardinals are winning that baseball game probably. It's really a race to who's winning by the time we get to the bullpen and who gets to their bullpen first. That's what a Cardinals game is.
6-inning games.
Yeah, they play October baseball in the regular season. Now, doing that for 6 months is not that sustainable.
That's the only way you can get to
concern.
October, and when you get to October, I don't know if that's going to be the same weapon for you.
That's my concern, because T-Bone mentioned, he sent us a stat over the weekend about Jojo Romero and how his fastball's just gone. Like, it just doesn't work anymore. He has 0 swings and misses on it. I think it's over, like, the last month, which is crazy. He's got a good fastball, and it was awesome for him early on in the season. It's not working any longer, and that's a concern because he's such a big part of the way that they're winning these games on a consistent level. Ryan Fernandez becomes that much more important. You mentioned Ryan Helsley. I like Andrew Kittredge still, but he's showing consistent signs of slippage compared to what he was early on in the season. This team needs another high-leverage reliever, not from in the system. Like, they're getting guys that are emerging. I like what they have right now from Chris Roycroft. Like, these dudes that are coming up and giving them solid innings. Leahy gave them some really important innings. What we've seen so far from John King, awesome for them. Like, they've got guys. They need another dude that they can put at the back end of the pin, and that's going to have to be something that they try to target once you get to the trade deadline. Because if you play this way, eventually these guys are just going to wear down.
And I think they're going to.
I don't blame Ollie for doing it the way that he has. It's worked, but it's hard.
And we'll talk about this in the 12 o'clock hours. But you almost have to play into this now because it's a lot harder to fix the offense than it is to upgrade the pitching and make it even better once you get to this point. Because right now, what's happening is they know they're not winning a lot of games like yesterday where they won by, 5 runs? So what happens is there are games that they are close and they have to sit their high leverage arms because they can't burn them out, which puts you at a disadvantage in that game to where you do have to turn to a John King, for example, who's been really good. You don't want him in the 8th inning of a ball game, though.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex Ferrario, and I'm Brandon Kiley. If you missed it, the news today, the Cardinals have activated Lars Nootbaar. I have not seen a lineup just yet for them. They play against the Nationals today at 3 o'clock. Cardinals versus the Nationals, game 4 of this rare 4-game series that came through Monday over the weekend. They're back in town tomorrow against the Kansas City Royals, hoping to get a win as they get off of this road trip. With Alex T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, has Mizzou changed its lot in life, or is this just a one-off of an offseason in which they are having one of the best recruiting cycles again that they've ever had? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks Near Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Nationals yesterday 8-3, and they try to take 3 of 4 today. 3:05 will be first pitch for the series finale in Washington. Miles Michaels will be on the mound for St. Louis, and the Cardinals made a roster move just about 30 minutes ago as they've activated Lars Nootbaar from the IL and optioned Jose Fermin. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex, things are feeling pretty good right now if you're a Missouri Tigers fan. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. My question, though, is has Missouri changed its lot in life, or is this just a rare one-off for them when it comes to recruiting? They're capitalizing on what was one of the best seasons that they've ever had in the history of their program last year, and they're hoping to take it one step further this year on the field. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But on the recruiting trail, Eli Drinkwitz had a weekend for the ages. It started by getting a wide receiver out of Florida, Javon Boggs. He is the number 67 player in the country, according to Rivals, a top 15 wide receiver in the country, a 4-star. One of the best out-of-state players they have ever had commits to their roster. Then the very next day, they add another wide receiver out of Florida, a top 55 player in the country, top 10 wide receiver in the country from IMG Academy, one of the most prestigious high school recruiting places in the country. This kid's 6'1", 200 pounds, a stud of a wide receiver. He decides to commit to the Missouri Tigers over places like Alabama and Colorado and Florida. Then the very next day, another 4-star out-of-state player, offensive lineman from Texas, top 75 player in the country, number 2 offensive guard in the country, decides I also would like to play for the Missouri Tigers.
This math isn't mathing.
Chose Missouri over Auburn, Alabama, Baylor, etc.
He had no good offers.
Well, I understand why he chose Mizzou over Bama. Mizzou is the new face of the SEC.
Offers from Florida State and Michigan and Ole Miss and Ohio State and Oklahoma and Oregon and Penn State and Tennessee and Texas. You get the point.
What do they have to offer? Have you seen Mizzou on the EA Sports College Football rankings?
As of today,
not enough money apparently.
Missouri has the number 12 recruiting class in the country, according to Rivals. Number 12 in the country. That would by far be their best class ever. Like there is no close.
For how many 4s have they been getting? It feels like they should be top 5 right now.
Yeah, Ohio State has 4 5-stars currently committed.
Give it time. Mizzou will flip them.
Missouri has a lot of 4-stars. They have 8 of them. For context, Alabama has 17. Oklahoma has 17. Recruiting is wild in the SEC, to put it mildly. Alex, is this the new norm? I have always said, as a Missouri fan, all I expect, you go in 4-year cycles, right? Every year in that 4-year cycle, try to win at least 7 games. Couple of times maybe have ceiling years, right? Where one of those years you have a 9-win season, everybody really has a good time. You felt like your team had a chance to do something special that year. And then one other year, you win 10 or 11 games, and if everything goes right in the old system, maybe you make it to the SEC championship game. You probably get your teeth kicked in, but you had an unbelievable season. And if everything goes correct, you get a little luck, maybe you go to the college football playoff. That is the ceiling for Missouri football, for me as a fan, has always been that. And now I'm starting to wonder if there's something more. If Eli Drinkwitz can actually be the coach that takes what Gary Pinkel had at Missouri and builds upon it. I didn't know if it was possible, but I'm starting to feel like there may be something more there. Am I crazy for that, Alex, or are you seeing this as well?
I wouldn't say you're crazy with it. It feels that this is the way it's going, at least as long as you have Eli Drinkwitz. because this isn't just like a one season where he's capitalized on this. I mean, we're talking multiple years where he has been able to get either guys to flip or bring top recruits to Mizzou and commit to it. And I think that goes all the way back since Luther Burden, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So you're talking almost 3 straight years of finding ways to get multiple 4-star recruits, to get a 5-star recruit, and continue to bring in more and more commits. Does it all drop off immediately? There's no way I feel like that can happen. I think it all lies on Eli Drinkwitz, because as long as you keep that guy, this type of recruiting class is still going to come in, because some type of witchcraft he's got going on is finding ways to convince these kids out of state, mind you. We used to complain.
That's the crazy part.
We used to complain 5 years ago how they couldn't even keep kids in state. And now all of a sudden you're getting all of them. And now we're going to Florida and bringing kids to Mizzou. That's the part that tells me this is not just a one-off.
Yeah, it's building blocks. You know, you start by keeping kids in state.
Right.
You end up getting the Luther Burden to come in. You get that first 5-star. You know, if that was all it was, and then the next year it was kind of back to the norm of previous college football recruiting for the Missouri football program, I'd go, okay, yeah, that was the one-off. But he has building blocks. You know, Eli's been building blocks here at Missouri with his recruiting and then the play on the field. So I don't think this is a one-off. Now, will they always be a top 15 class in the country? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be like top 25. But I don't think this is like a one-off and like next year he's really going to struggle to recruit all of a sudden. Unless things go really south on the field real fast, I don't see that happening, though. They're too talented on the field. He's too good of a recruiter to lose that witchcraft, as you called it. I think this is a sustainable model as long as you have Eli Drinkwitz here at Mizzou.
You're built in a culture, and I think that's the most important thing, and that seems like what Drink wanted to do from day one.
I just didn't believe that it was possible. Like that's why
been through a lot of hurt, man.
Yeah, I have. And that's why when he first came in, my biggest question, and this sounds crazy today, but at the time, my biggest question was, can you recruit? Like, is this a guy that can come in and recruit at the level that is necessary to succeed in the SEC? Because I've seen he's got the offensive chops to be able to put together an offense that works, right? We saw it when he was at NC State. He was an offense coordinator at Boise. He went to Appalachian State, and his stuff worked there. Like, I've seen, okay, offensive mind, this guy, it works. He put together what appeared to be a really good coaching staff while he was at App State. It's cool, great. He's been on a national championship team as a low-level assistant when he was at Auburn. Okay, he's been around winning. He knows what it looks like. He's been in the SEC. He's from this footprint. Like, there was a lot of stuff when they hired Eli Drinkwitz that shouted, this could work if he can recruit to the level that is necessary to win in the SEC. And I know some people, especially Missouri fans in the past, have pushed back on the idea of stars matter, right? Because Gary Pinkel showed there are exceptions to that rule. You can go out there and find Sean Witherspoon, 2-star recruit that comes in and is amazing. LaDainian Washington. Like, they found guys that were lower-level recruits that went on to become NFL-caliber players. Scenario Alexander at Missouri. But overall, to win at a really high level, look at the teams that are doing it, guys. It's teams that are consistently recruiting in the top 15. You have to be there in order to have that kind of success. Or you're a one-off, like TCU was, where everything kind of came together for 1 year. It was a one-off, and now last year they went back to being the team that they were previously. I think Eli might be capable. I think he might be able to do this. His recruiting classes over the last 5 seasons, 19th, 13th, 30th, 22nd, and right now 12. That's a top 15-ish overall in terms of like the average class rank, 15 to 20.
If you're in that like top 25, top 30 for, you mentioned the 4-year window for winning. Well, if you do like a 5-year window for recruiting, if you're in that top 25 and then you have that 1 year where you're in the like top 15,
Great.
top 10, boom, there's your model.
And if you get it at the positions that matter the most, like you need game changers. You need guys like
not
Luther
punter.
Burden.
Got it.
Illinois got a punter over the weekend.
Hey, that's going to be massive when you have to kick the ball away because you're 3rd and 15 again.
You got to have the quarterback. That's what Gary Pinkel always had. And it appears that Missouri has one right now in Brady Cook. We'll see what's behind him as we go along. But they've got the quarterback. They have the game-changing weapon in Luther Burden right now. They're continuing to add more talent around Luther Burden in these recruiting cycles that they've had in recent seasons. And they continue to throw talent at the defensive side of the ball. If you can do that, you're in a good place. In Missouri right now, it seems like they're adding talent in all of the right areas. It's been shocking to watch as a Missouri fan. I didn't think this was possible at a place like Mizzou. I thought it would always be Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, etc. Missouri's starting to enter that kind of territory. Missouri and Ole Miss are the two teams in the SEC that it seems like are finding ways, despite not being traditional powers, to win at the NIL game. They're the two schools that are having the most success. And I do not think it's a coincidence that they have two coaches that are really good at sales. Lane Kiffin and Eli Drinkwitz can sell their programs like nobody else. And that has real value right now in this era of college football. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Braden Kiley for our friends over at Circa Sports in Illinois. Alex, there's one place that I'm betting in. It is on Circa Sports. And one of the reasons why is because I'm winning the most money possible with them. If you want to go bet on the Cardinals today to win straight up against the Washington Nationals, you can go over to FanDuel. You can try that. You're not going to get the most money possible, though. It's minus 102 today for the Cardinals to win straight up over there. That means you bet $102 to win 100. Meanwhile, over on Circa, plus 105, you're betting $100 to win $105. You're winning more money over there. It's not just, though, with their money line bets. It's also their futures bets. We were just talking about Mizzou football. If you wanted to bet Mizzou to win the national title over on FanDuel, 38 to 1. Decent odds, right? If you go do the exact same bet and you do it on the Circa Sports app right now, 65 to 1 odds. There's one place to bet, and it's with Circa.
I'm already looking at the Open Championship in a couple of weeks, BK, with those futures. If I want to go Bryson DeChambeau to win it, I'm getting significantly better odds on the Circa Sports Illinois app. So whether it's those tight money line splits, whether it's those big future bets, make sure you're doing it on the right app, and that's Circa Sports Illinois. Plus the customer service, you're always speaking to someone, not just a chat bot. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 314, guys, you think that Zach Bolduc will end up cracking the top 6 for the Blues out of camp this year?
Top 6? No. Roster? Yes, most likely. He's got to have a good camp. Like, this is what it comes down to. Top 6 is already set, in my opinion. You got Kyrou Thomas, Pavel Buchnevich, Braden Shen, I would say Jake Neighbors, and most likely Brandon Saad. And then from there, does Dalibor Dvorsky make the roster? Does Texier have a really good camp? Does Faksa or Matthew Joseph have a good camp? And then it comes down to Zach Bolduc. I think he makes this roster, but I don't think he makes the top 6.
I'm not sure he's making the roster because the Blues seem pretty determined to block him from the roster. So
Kasperi Kapanen.
Yeah, it's the whole reason I was upset about the offseason last week was this felt like the season to have Bolduc in the lineup every night. And I know people, the Blues, the Cardinals, don't like to gift wrap positions to him. You're in a retool. You're having a year that's probably going to be worse than next year. Let him go out there, play, and learn. And instead, I feel like they constructed the roster to block him from making it. So I do not think he will be on this roster opening night.
I think he'll be, if he makes the roster, it's third line.
I think he's playing on a line with Matthew Joseph and Radek Faksa.
I could see that.
And then your fourth line is a Texier and a Fox. Or
Tell me
Faksa.
if you agree with this, Alex. I think his spot is determined by if Dvorsky makes the roster. I think Dvorsky would be taking. It's weird because they play very different situations and different roles. I think if Dvorsky makes the roster, Bolduc will be in the A.
Yes. Dvorsky has to be significantly better than a lot of NHL players to make this roster. I think in their mind, Bolduc is on the wing on the third line, and Dvorsky's the centerman for the top line in the AHL. And can you change the mind of players at training camp and front office members at training camp? Absolutely. If you're better than Braden Shen and Pavel Buchnevich as a centerman through training camp and preseason, you could change their mind.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Guys, how do you think that the Cardinals will manipulate the roster to have 3 catchers on it? Is that an option for them? I don't think it's as hard as people are making this out to be.
What are you talking about, man? You got to get rid of Brandon Crawford and Matt Carpenter.
I don't think you have to get rid of Matt Carpenter.
Brandon Crawford's bat has been hot.
Like, the next move would be you get back Tommy Edman. And I guess the next move is technically the catcher, right?
Mm-hmm. Or you're DFAing somebody.
That's where I think you have to option Dylan Carlson.
That's who it should be.
I think that's the move. Like, you've got Burleson, Donovan, Newt, Ciani, all of whom can play in the outfield for right now. And very soon, it sounds like not too far in the distant future, you'll have Tommy Edman back as well, who can play in the outfield. So I think the move is when you get Herrera back, Dylan Carlson is optioned down to AAA. I think that's the move.
That's what it should be.
And then after that, when Edman gets back, you probably DFA Brandon Crawford. And that's the move that you would do there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen.
If someone is, one of the catchers isn't performing, like Herrera's not hitting, then maybe they explore the idea of, I don't know why, but they love their veterans, of then sending down one of the catchers to activate Edman. But the goal right now should be Herrera's activated, Carlson's down, Edman's activated, Crawford's out of town. It's kind of catchy, too.
I really wonder if Herrera's traded.
It's possible, but they might have like 2 weeks before.
No, I know, but then I wonder if you slow. I mean, it feels like they're going to slow play this until the All-Star break.
You can't. You don't have enough time. I think it's 20 days is the max that you have
to the All-Star break for Herrera.
For Edman.
Oh, you could for Herrera, but I mean, like after that, you've got 2 weeks between the All-Star break and when the trade deadline.
Yeah, I understand, and that's why I wonder if you go back to 2 catchers and then you trade Ivan Herrera and then you bring Pajes back up.
I just don't see any value of having Herrera in AAA. There's no value in that. They traded Andrew Kisner in the offseason, or DFA'd, they decided not to tender him in the offseason because they said we have no more value in Herrera being at AAA. I think his bat plays. I think you can have him as a designated hitter against left-handed pitching on days when Contreras is behind the plate.
Yeah.
So I think that matters, and I think there's value in that. I would keep him up here, but it's got to require them sending Carlson down.
And he gives you, I mean, I don't know if I'd call him a threat, but he gives you at least a guy like, if Contreras is catching that day, Pajes serves as the backup. Now I've got a right-handed bat, a real right-handed bat that could come off the bench. Not this, if I squint, I may be able to see Carlson get a hit against this lefty. No, you actually have a guy that can at least get on base. I don't know if he's a threat like a home run guy because he hasn't really proven that this year, but maybe I can get a guy that gets on base, flips the order back around, and then when you need to go back to that substitution, you bring Pajas into the game as well.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, I thought Brady Cook's arm strength was lacking and exploited by good defenses. Do you think that his shoulder surgery last offseason was the reason why? And do you think that we could see improvements from him with a full healthy season? Disagree entirely. I thought his arm strength was great last year. I thought his arm strength 2 years ago was a problem. I thought last year was really good, and I thought that was the reason why you saw an improvement. There was a quarterback ranking. We were talking about this before the show today. SEC Mike put this out from that SEC podcast.
This is a really insider right here.
He said Brady Cook is the best quarterback returning this year in the SEC. So he's got him at number 1 on the list of the best quarterbacks in the conference.
SEC must suck at quarterbacks this year.
Jackson Dart, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers was terrible, Jalen Milroe. That's the rounding out of your top 5.
All right, he's probably top 5. It's definitely not number 1.
I think I would have him.
Where's Illinois' quarterback?
I don't know who's winning our job, so
I think I would have to rank.
Best punter, though, in the Big Ten, I've heard.
I would go either 2 or 3. I think it depends on how you value Jalen Milroe. Milroe's the one that I can't really put my finger on. There's games where I watch and I'm like, that guy's one of the best players in the country. And there's other games that I'm watching and I'm like, that guy might be benched at halftime.
But because of that is why I would have Brady Cook above him. Like, because I don't know who Jay Milroe is going to be. I know what Brady Cook is.
Carson Beck, I think, he's a guy that always gets underrated because he's just so damn consistent. He's just really good. There is nothing about him that I watch and I'm like, he's not good in that area. He's good at everything. I don't know that he's great at anything. He's pretty athletic. He's got a pretty good arm. He's pretty accurate. He's J.J. McCarthy for Georgia. If he was at Mizzou, would he be better than what Brady Cook is? I don't know. But I'm not going to find that out this year because he's at Georgia. He's got amazing talent around him.
That's the thing is, like, I am not the biggest Carson Beck fan. I would probably put Brady Cook at 3. I would have Ewers ahead of him. I do like Quinn Ewers' game, and I would have Milroe 1 because his ceiling is
Quinn
just
Ewers
higher.
stinks.
You are just a hater.
So bad.
Such a hater. This is
the
unbelievable.
worst part of the Texas football team last year was their quarterback. The singular worst part. They would have been so much better last year with Brady Cook. So much better. If you put J.J. McCarthy on that team, they would have won the title. If you just swapped their quarterbacks at halftime of that
McCarthy'd
game.
have to throw on that team, so no, they wouldn't. McCarthy needs to hand the ball off.
No, McCarthy's bad. It's so much better than Quinn Ewers. It's not even funny.
Your takes on college football, T-Bone, are terrible.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to play a game of in or out. You give us the scenario. We'll tell you if we're in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up next, though, bigger problem for the Cardinals to address at the deadline. Hitting left-handed pitching, which has been a problem for them, or their rotation. We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. All right, so what's the bigger problem that the Cardinals need to address at the deadline? Is it hitting left-handed pitching? Or is it the rotation in general? With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, I thought it was interesting. Earlier today, Ken Rosenthal put out a piece where he wrote about the Cardinals' biggest issues, had their biggest offensive problem, one to which Goldie and Arenado are contributing, unfortunately in a bad way, is that they can't hit lefties. Their OPS against left-handed pitching ranks 29th in the majors, ahead of only the Marlins. 2 years ago, they were the best team in baseball against left-handed pitching. Last year, when they won 71 games, their fewest in a full season since 1990, they were 20th in Major League Baseball in OPS against left-handed pitching. He then goes on to say that basically the Cardinals need to find out when they get Lars Nootbaar, Ivan Herrera, and Tommy Edman back into the lineup, if this is something that will continue or if this is just an issue that was there for them in the first half of the season and their health, more than anything else, will alleviate the problem. I think it's an open-ended question. I don't really know what the answer to that is going to be. I do think it's a problem. I think it's really hard to address, though. I don't know how you go out and fix that problem by trading for somebody at the deadline. So for me, I think their bigger issue was, and continues to be the rotation. I think you have a clear lack of a mid-rotation, front-of-the-rotation starter, somebody that can start a game 2 of a playoff series for you. I'm fine with Kyle Gibson starting a game 3. I'm fine with it. He's good enough now. He's shown the swing and miss. Yesterday, I think it was 8 strikeouts in 5 innings for him. He's fine. I can have him start a game 3, and I don't feel like I'm completely overmatched. It's game 2, where right now I feel like you're at a deficit. So I still view that as the biggest problem for this team. Do you think hitting lefties is a bigger issue?
No. I mean, I think it's a bigger issue, but it's a problem you can't address. And, that's where I feel like the question, it's a bigger problem to address at the deadline. You can't address hitting lefties. The only way you're going to fix that is internally. You're going to have to get Goldschmidt going, Arenado going, you get Herrera back, you have Tommy Edman. That's the way you're going to approach hitting lefties. You can't make a trade to fix hitting lefties because where's that individual going to play unless you're trading a Paul Goldschmidt or Nolan Arenado, and I don't think that's happening anytime soon. So to me, it's obvious the rotation. I do believe the hitting lefties has to be fixed, but the one that you realistically can achieve is trading for a number 2. Watching Sonny Gray get lit up for that first start where it's like, oh, okay, that's just an off game. But then watching Lance Lynn, you can't have Lance Lynn as an option. There has to be one in between those two, and I don't believe Miles Mikolas is it. I think Miles Mikolas is probably that 4th guy you're talking about beyond Kyle Gibson. So now it comes back to acquiring somebody who is the Robin to your Batman with Sonny Gray. And when you accomplish that, to me, if you add in a little bullpen piece, because I do think that's important as well, that is a job well done at the trade deadline if you fix that, because I don't think you could do anything for lefties.
Yeah, that's where I am as well. I just don't think that you can upgrade them without doing something creative, and that would mean like trading a Nootbaar for a controllable right-handed bat or a Gorman for a controllable right-handed bat. And the Cardinals don't want to give up on lefties. Why? Because the lefty bats matter when you get to October. And if you look at the National League as a whole, we were talking about this before the show, there's not a ton of lefty guys that really scare you when you get to October. There's Suarez and Christopher Sanchez with Philly. Atlanta's got Max Fried, Chris Sale. And then that's kind of it, unless there's somebody that I'm like significantly forgetting. But like the Dodgers don't have a lefty that really scares you. You know, Milwaukee doesn't really have a lefty that scares you. So that may not be as big of an issue by the time you get to October, unless some big left-handed arm comes in, like a Crochet goes to like San Diego, for example. But the pitching is where you can fix it. There's always starters that are available. I think their goal at the trade deadline as of right now is probably acquiring 1 to 2 starters and 1 bullpen arm, because I do think they are 2 starters short. I think they are a number 2 short and probably a number 4 that can be right there with a Miles Mikolas. I think they need 2 starters to make significant pushes.
I mean, they're not going to do that. We know that. Then
where you can't talk about them as an October contender.
Why do you think they need 2?
Because right now, Sonny Gray is your 1. You don't have a 2. Gibson's your 3, and there's a significant drop off to 4. Miles Mikolas is not a 4.
Mikolas is a good enough 4 for you.
He's not going to win in October.
I don't think you're using him in October.
Cannot be used in October if you need a 4th starter. And that's just where I am.
Why can't Mikolas be used in
Mikolas
October?
isn't a pitch-to-contact guy that, as we've seen, can continue to have his blow-up outings. He is Lance Lynn right now. I do not trust those two when you get to October. And honestly, I don't trust Kyle Gibson in October, but you're probably going to be stuck with him.
Well, Lance Lynn's not going to be used in October. And if we're talking about Miles Michaelis being the problem, then you've had massively other issues for this team than worrying about Miles Michaelis. Like, if Miles Michaelis is the reason you lose a playoff series, you should have won it before we're talking Miles Michaelis.
Who was the Diamondbacks' number 4 starter last year?
They did a bullpen game.
Yeah, like, come on. What are we talking about here, man?
But that, to me, that's not... I know they did it, but I would much rather have a 4-starter than go with my bullpen constantly.
Yeah, they're not going to do that, though. What they're going to do is they're going to have a number 4 starter, and his name's Miles Michaelis. Like, that's what it's going to be. You can hate it all you want to, but...
Well, let's be honest. You're not even going to worry about that because you're not going to win the wild card series. You'll be done after 2.
I guess that's fair, and they'll build that way, but...
That's what I mean. It feels like, and I'm not trying to be mean about it, but they're building it to get to the wild card. And then from there, we're expecting to win it with Sonny Gray and then the guy that we acquired at the trade deadline. And guess what? When your offense falters because you couldn't hit left-handed, although I don't know if you're really going to see left-handed pitching in the playoffs.
Not much.
If your offense doesn't come through for you, then we're not complaining about the pitching. We're complaining about the offense.
I think it's just unreasonable to ask them to get multiple starters at the deadline. Who are the team? Multiple good starters at the deadline. It's just, it very rarely happens, and you're going to have to give up a decent amount to do that. And honestly, they just don't have the roster spots for that. Like, you're like cutting Lance Lynn in the scenario that you just presented.
Okay. Well, after this last start.
Fair, but we know they're not going to do that. I think this does get to an interesting question, though, of like, is there pressure on John Mozeliak? Because, T-Bone, I think you're going to say no to this question, but then you just gave that opinion, which means that you think there's pressure on Mo.
I don't think there's if there was pressure, he'd do what I just said. If there's pressure on Mo, he'd go get 2 starters.
Who's the general manager in baseball that's doing what you
AJ Preller would go get 2 starters.
4 pitchers at the deadline.
I said 3.
Multiple bullpen arms.
I said
and
1
a starter?
bullpen arm.
Okay. I would love to see a list of general managers in the last 5 years that have gone into the deadline and traded for a legitimate front-end starter and a high-leverage reliever. I would love to see the list. It's probably 3 teams. And they were all legitimate World Series contenders when they did it. And they said, you know what? Flags fly forever. We'll go ahead and throw caution to the wind. We're going to go all in on this season. Like, I would imagine that the Cubs were potentially one of the... Like, teams don't do what you're requesting of them. It's unreasonable to say that they should go out there and do this.
BK doesn't want to win.
Of course I want to win,
Craig
but
Button
I want to
told
do
us
so
that
within
it's your job
realistic
as general
expectations.
It's Mo's job. Now, look, the second starter I brought up, I think it's a need. They're going to justify it as a want. But to me, you don't have a playoff rotation. Like Kyle Gibson's never started a playoff series. You know why? Kyle Gibson's not a playoff starter.
Kyle Gibson's good, though. He's a different pitcher today than he has been for the vast majority of his career.
The Phillies didn't feel like he could start for them in the playoffs last year. They were like, he'll be a bullpen arm.
Fair, and I think he's been better this year. I think Kyle Gibson is a perfectly adequate number 3 starter. I think we always just go into this assuming like everybody's got this great rotation when they get into the playoffs. Yeah. Kyle Gibson has been good this year. And legitimately has been good.
And I'm not denying that. I mean, Kyle Gibson has been a savior for this team this year. But as we've seen in the past with the Cardinals, October is a different beast, and you got to be able to handle that. And I don't know if Kyle Gibson is able to handle October yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen him handle it.
I don't feel like he's the kind of guy that's going to wilt under the pressure.
I get it, but
I wouldn't think Goldie would be that either.
Or Arenado. And multiple teams thought that Kyle Gibson couldn't do it in the playoffs for them. Or that they had better options.
Again, I think he's a different pitcher today than he has been in his past. He's at almost a strikeout per inning this year. He's never been that in his career other than 2019. I think was the last time that he was that kind of a pitcher. Like, this is just... His stuff is playing in a different way than it has in the past. And I think if I told you, hey, there's a guy out there right now in Major League Baseball that the Cardinals could acquire to be a number 3 starter. He's got a mid-3s ERA. He's going to get you consistently to 6 innings, and he's roughly at a strikeout per inning. Oh, by the way, he's got good command as well. We'd all be like, oh, cool. Yeah, trade for that guy. Let's bring him in. Like, the pitchers that you're probably saying the Cardinals should go out and trade profile very similarly to what Kyle Gibson is right now as a starting pitcher. And you're saying that they would be an upgrade over him. The reason why is because they're not here right now. We're not watching them consistently. We see the numbers and we're like, oh, that's the guy that I would want. Gibson is that guy already. They have him on the roster. And I don't think it's likely or reasonable to suggest that they're going to go out there and upgrade from him. I do think there's pressure on Mo, though. I do. I think this year at the deadline, like there was a piece from Jeff Passan earlier today over on ESPN.com about the 10 general managers across Major League Baseball that have the most pressure on them at this year's deadline. Mo did not crack the top 10. In fact, he had 6 honorable mention general managers. Mo did not crack the other 6. So of the 16 GMs that were mentioned in this piece, there were 0 words written about John Mozeliak. Do you guys agree with that? That there's basically no pressure this year at the deadline for John Mozeliak?
Yeah, I do. Because you can't have pressure if there's not going to be any fire back when things go haywire. You can't have pressure if you're John Mozeliak if you lose in 2 games in a wild card series because you didn't make a trade and get fired. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think this team could miss the playoffs this year and go on a historically bad month at the end of the season and Mo not make a trade and still not get fired. Mo is in his position until Mo decides, I'm done. That's his role. And I just can't buy anything into believing that guy's under pressure going into a trade deadline when your team is already positioned well enough into a playoff spot because everybody in the National League is bad. And if you don't make any trades, they're not going to fire Mo if the team doesn't get past the wild card round because they didn't make a trade. They're going to be like, well, better luck next year. We'll try again. We got to the playoffs, boys. And Mo's going to be fine until Mo says I don't want to be anymore. So that's why I agree with Passan. I don't think there's any pressure on John Mozeliak to do anything.
I'm with Alex. I don't think he's under pressure because he's walking out in 2 years. There's no pressure. If there's any pressure on Mo, it's from Mo. It's not from ownership, and that's why you make this list. If this ownership wants you to go out and make significant moves to either A, get to the playoffs, or B, go on a deep run in October. And I'm sure there's a little bit of that for ownership, but they're not going to fire Mo if anything bad happens. And they haven't fired Mo after last year's season, and they haven't done anything in the playoffs success-wise since 2019. So, no, there's no pressure at all under John Mozeliak as far as I'm concerned.
I think there is immense pressure because his legacy is potentially on the line. If you go the next couple of seasons without doing anything in the postseason, people will look at the back half of John Mozeliak's tenure in St. Louis as a complete failure. Because basically since 2015, now there was that 2019 run into the NLCS, but nobody believed in that team. They didn't even sell at the park for that NLCS. When you look at what they have done since 2015, almost a decade now, and if he ends up walking out the door after next season, it will be a decade of baseball. Since he was somebody that people viewed as somebody that can put together a contender, a legitimate contending roster. And if that ends up being the case, I think most Cardinals fans will look at that and say that was a failure of a decade under John Mozeliak's tenure. And there are very few general managers in the history of this organization that you would say for a decade, a failure for them. And so I think there's real pressure to get this thing right. If this team continues to play the way that they have over their last 50 games, there's pressure for him to upgrade the roster in a meaningful way. I don't think that means 2 starters. I think that means 1, but I think it means aiming higher. Texas added 2 starters at the
This guy named Jordan Montgomery and this guy named Max Scherzer.
And then in the bullpen, they added Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
All in, contending team, World Series or bust, flags fly forever. How are they doing this year?
Well, that flag's flying forever.
100%. Absolutely. Do you think this team, if they did that, flag flying forever?
The flag's not even flying.
Maybe.
Come on,
they
guys.
do not have multiple MVP candidates the way that team.
Guys, the offense still's not good.
100%. They've got to upgrade there too, or they've got to trust that it's going to get better. I don't think it's reasonable.
So you're saying I should increase my list to like another offensive?
No, I'm saying it's unreasonable to ask
all-star.
them to do what last year's Rangers did at the deadline. I think that is unreasonable.
3 all-star, T-Bone. Bat, starting pitcher, bullpen arm.
I do think there's pressure. I do think there's pressure on John Mozeliak. It's not make a big move or get fired, obviously, but I think from the fans, that's where the pressure is coming from right now.
Could I be honest? I don't think Mo cares about his legacy. I think Mo already believes his legacy is fine because of the championships he's been a part of. I think Mo views this as I've already had a successful legacy in St. Louis, and there's not much I could change with that.
I think he wants to go out on the right terms. Otherwise, I think he would have already walked away. I think that is a big part of why he's still here. It's a big part of why he's still running the baseball operations because he wants to get it back to what it's supposed to be.
But that's just getting in October.
And I also feel like you're lying to yourself if you believe you can get it right so you can walk away with the state of this team.
I think it just depends on what you're talking about. Because if you're talking about like what I think his version of making it right and making it like easy to walk away from, That's what they were. Was a 90-win team that like maybe wins the NL Central and makes the playoffs. Not a threat in October. If that's the
Isn't that
case.
what 2006 was though? Isn't that what 2011 was though?
Yeah, but they had Albert Pujols on those teams.
Totally fair.
That always gives you a chance to win.
And you mentioned like they don't have MVPs on this team. They missed their. If you're talking about pressure,
Yeah,
you
21 and 22 was your
22. They missed.
Yeah.
Mo missed.
I agree.
It's just
That was your all in. You had back-to-back years all in, and you blew that.
22 was the year.
Yeah.
22 was the year.
21 they had to piece it together because they were like middle of the pack.
June was the worst June they've had ever in the history of the organization.
But
22, you had 2 MVP candidates, and you missed.
But well, 3, because Tyler O'Neill was smashing at that time, wasn't he? Oh, 21. Maybe that's why I'm thinking 21. 21, you still had guys playing at an MVP level, and you missed on that. You had back-to-back years to go all in, and you didn't do it.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us a scenario, we'll tell you if we are in or out here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. For in or out, you give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are in or out here on 101 ESPN. You can always check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. They spend most of the day roasting us, but we love them for it. Shout out to Cat Dad Gamer.
Yeah, Cat Dad Gamer, you're our hero, baby. Send us a mic drop so we can hear that voice.
All right, let's play a game of in or out here on 101 ESPN. Alex, in or out? The Cardinals' big deadline addition will be Nathan Eovaldi. The Texas Rangers are 42-48. They are 6 games out of first place right now in the American League West. If you look at the wild card standings, they're actually further out. They're 7.5 games back in the wild card standings right now. In or out?
Does he have one more year of control?
I think he
If he pitches, I think it's either 29
innings, something like that.
Oh, I thought it was fewer than that. I thought it was like 29 or 39 innings. He's close to getting his vesting option, then becomes a player option.
Yeah.
So he
I'm not sure
potentially
he would
has.
exercise it, by the way.
Especially if he pitches well.
It's 300 innings across the last 2 years. It's $20 million for next year. He's making 17 for this season. Eovaldi this year has thrown 87 innings with a 3.1 ERA. I don't know that he would exercise.
I'm going to say in on this, and I think this would be a win for the Cardinals because you have a legit postseason performer. Now, he might not profile as a number 2 for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, number 2s would be Garrett Crochet or Luis Severino. Like, you're shooting for the sky with that. To me, that would be a win because it would feel a lot like what the Cardinals did when they acquired John Lackey from the Red Sox a ways back, because it was like you went out there and you got a dude who just performed on the big stage. So I'll say in on this. I think that's a win for the team if they acquire that type of pitcher.
I'll say in. He makes a ton of sense for the Cardinals because of what you said. He profiles as a 2 when you get to October. And he might exercise the player option just because, like, pitchers get paid once they hit the market. And if he has another incredible October, you know what? Cardinals just hand him a blank check and bring him back.
3 years, $60 million.
Perfect.
Cool.
Let's do it. I would say in, though. He should be one of the top targets for the Cardinals. Him and Eric Fetty should be like their top 2 guys.
I think
maybe they're 2 guys.
This guy makes so much sense.
Eric Fetty and Nathan Eovaldi?
How you like that, Brandon?
Oh, man.
If they get one of those 2 guys, I will call it a success at the deadline. Those should be 2 of the top options. Now, if other names emerge, we can amend this, of course, as we continue going along. But those, to me, seem to be the types of guys that they should be targeting. I think both profile as a number 2 in a playoff rotation. Alex, what do you got?
Guys, in or out, the Cardinals got snubbed not having multiple All-Stars.
Out. They don't have any All-Stars outside of Ryan Helsley on this roster. Sonny Gray's close, but too many blow-ups. JoJo and Kittredge, close, too many blow-ups. JoJo can't blow a fastball by anybody anymore. And then the offense as a whole is just... outside of Mason Wynn, he's probably the one that got some, but the NL is so loaded at shortstop position, so I'd say out overall.
I think they got it right. I'm out on this as well. I think they got it right with the Cardinals' lone representative. It should have been Ryan Helsley. I think they got it right.
Yeah. I am as well. I think when you go at the reserves and you look through that list, because T-Bone's right, the only one that I would say deserves to be on that list is Mason Wynn, and I don't think you can pick any of those infielders with the exception of Ryan McMahon away, but I think every team has to have a representative. There's not one person on that reserve list that I'd look at and say, yeah, they should come off of Mason Wynn on, so I think they got it right. I'm in.
Guys, in or out, St. Louis Cardinals will catch the Milwaukee Brewers in the NL Central.
Out.
Yesterday was the first time that I looked back at the Central standings in a while. I normally just go to ESPN standings and click on the wild card and just totally avoid the Central. And they're only 5 games back right now. Now, that's still a lot to make up.
How many games they got against
second half of the season?
How many games they got against the Brewers this season?
They've got 73 games remaining overall. I think they have fewer games remaining against the Brewers than you'd expect.
6, right?
Like
2
6
series
left. Yeah.
Wow, that means you'll be at least 11 games out.
I'm out. I do not think they'll catch the Brewers. I still remain baffled as to how they're doing this. I look at their rotation and say to myself, that doesn't make sense. Like this, it doesn't compute that they're having success, but they are, and they keep doing it, and it's because they're a really well-run organization. They'll probably trade for 2 starters and multiple relievers at the deadline.
Eric Fetty and Nathan Eovaldi.
Everything will
If
go well
Milwaukee
for
gets
them.
2 starters, by the way,
They
I'm
already
going to
got-
tell you what my reaction will be.
They already got one.
And I'm not counting Keuchel. They got him for $1.
Oh, Savali from whatchamacallit.
Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot. So they've already done
They
it.
got 2.
Wow.
They got 2. Because they're
They're going to do more than 2.
They're going to get 4 starting pitchers and a bullpen arm. That's an aggressive team.
That is.
I like it.
I'm out. I do not think they're going to.
Yeah, I'm out. I think they'll make it interesting, but I can't buy into the Cardinals being better than the Brewers until I see them beat them in a series. And you've gotten shellacked both times you've played them. I know it was the early portion of the season, but to me, I view those two series as Milwaukee Brewers wins, which means you can make it close, but you're not going to get them.
I'm out, and it's one thing, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Their offense is the separator because their pitching has been as good as yours while dealing with a million injuries to where they have to bring back Keuchel from the dead to be a starter, and they've already made one trade. I expect them to make more to add to that rotation. They're going to get healthy. Their offense is hit all season long, and your offense is not. So Milwaukee is better. I think they will make it close. I agree with that, but I don't think you're catching them.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 661. Guys in or out, Justin Herbert will be the MVP of the upcoming season.
Out. He may not win 5 games this year.
Who would be your pick as of today to win the MVP next year?
It's so chalk, but I think I have to pick Patrick Mahomes.
Hell yeah, brother.
I mean, it's either Mahomes or if you believe in the Buffalo Bills, which I don't, it's going to be Josh Allen. Because if Josh Allen is the same, if that team is the same team without Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen's the MVP of the league.
It's interesting because the two names that I first thought of was one. I could see Mahomes being in there because he's got a better cast of weapons this year than he did at all last year. But the two that I was thinking that are probably going to be dark horses are not really dark horses, but Joe Burrow. Bounce back year for Joe. I could see where you could pick him. The other one I was thinking was Josh Allen. If the Bills end up winning like 10 games, that roster to me is like a 7-win team. They win 10, it's probably because Josh Allen played like an MVP.
I'm actually disappointed in myself. My boy CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I can't believe you didn't bring him up. I'm legitimately shocked.
Yeah, I know. I'm very disappointed in myself. 4 teams, they're going to be a playoff team. They might win their division, and CJ Stroud is going to have like 30 touchdowns. So yeah, it's CJ Stroud.
He's third right now in the odds. He's tied with Joe Burrow. It's
so
Mahomes 1, Allen 2, and then Stroud and Burrow. So we've mentioned the top 4 candidates to win the MVP.
You know what? I'm a piece of crap.
All
That's
in the
on me.
AFC.
Anthony Richardson, just
I thought
hell out of here,
I thought
man.
about him too.
keep that name.
I just worry about his
It would
health.
have to be the Cam Newton route where he runs for like 12 touchdowns, throws for 30.
But he's saying now his shoulder bothers him.
I know.
That's why he's running a lot.
I don't think it's going to happen, but if something...
This might surprise you too, but when I'm a running quarterback, I got to like block with my shoulder. And
It's typically like year 2 or 3 where those quarterbacks will start to emerge and they got the talent around them. He's in a really good system. That's one that I wouldn't totally count out. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. Guys, in or out? Nachos are a better game day food than wings.
out.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Nachos
out.
are a better game day food at a stadium or an arena.
Out even further.
Wings are better at home.
I don't want wings when I'm at a stadium.
Oh, I'll do wings any
I'd
day
rather
of the
have
week.
the nachos.
No.
When I'm at the stadium, I'm in on the nachos. At home, I'm going wings all the time. Now, nachos over pizza? Maybe.
You're insane. I'll do I won't do nachos at a ballpark because the chips are never a good quality. They become soggy. They don't measure it out properly. Home, I'll do the nachos because I can
He's right.
properly
I like
measure
it.
it.
It's a good take.
Yeah, come on, man. And then I'm still always going to go wings though over nachos. There's no competing.
Boneless or bone in?
Oh, I like the bone, man.
I
I've
don't-
also mastered the
For T-bone, no bone.
art of separating the double wing and then just straight through.
Really, my dad does that. I'm
I'm a
incapable.
pro of it now. It's great.
That's
man.
when you know you've become a man.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you
A
something.
boy becomes a man when he knows
When
how
he
to
can
eat a
do
wing
it.
properly, and I haven't yet reached that place. I'm really excited. I'm going to turn 40. I'm going to be like, oh, I did it.
Dude, I can't wait. I can't wait for you to do it. You know, it's gonna be great.
All right, last thing here, in or out from the 636. Guys, Mizzou's recent hot streak in recruiting is the new normal for them. In or out? In.
And as long as Drink's there.
Agreed.
When Drink decides to go to somewhere else for bigger money, then welcome to your demise.
I'll say in. I won't necessarily rule out that it can't be done without Drink, but I think Drink is a big driver of it.
Agreed. I think NIL has helped him. I think Drinkwitz being the driver of this train has helped them. They're in a good spot, man. And now they're starting to build up the stadium again. They're making improvements there, which was needed. They needed to do that.
Must be nice.
It's a good place.
That punter's going to bring Illinois some money for
Illinois
that.
recruiting like the same year their stadium was
Lock.
built, which was like 1942. Like, come on,
He's
let's
Tanner.
go.
That's Alex. I'm
Let's
BK.
go.
Coming up next, hey, Nolan Gorman.
Brett.
He's back. Are we
Yeah, he
enjoying
is.
this Nolan Gorman experience? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks Near Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Nationals yesterday 8-3. They try to take 3 of 4 from Washington today as they wrap up their 4-game set. 3:05 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis is on the mound for St. Louis, and the Cardinals made a roster move earlier today. They've activated Lars Nootbaar from the 10-day IL and optioned Jose Fermin. The sports update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so Nolan Gorman is a wild boy, man. I can't remember an experience like this watching another St. Louis athlete where it is this all or nothing. Alex, in his last 6 games, he's 9 for 19. He has 3 doubles and a home run. He has an OPS of 1,300. He has 8 RBIs in those 6 games. In his previous 23 games, Nolan Gorman was 7 for 84, 0 doubles, 2 homers, and an OPS of 300. No, not an on-base percentage, not a batting average, an on-base plus slugging percentage of 300 over the course of 23 games.
T-Bone can do better than that.
If you go beyond that, the previous 20 games before that terrible 23-game stretch, 23 for 67, 3 doubles, 10 home runs, an OPS of 1,300, 19 RBIs in 20 games. It is truly all or nothing. And I'm not talking home run or strikeout. I'm talking this guy is either on fire and hitting as if he's one of the best players in baseball, or he's literally the worst hitter in the sport for a month. And there is seemingly no in between. Alex, it does seem like he's about to go on another heater, which is good for the Cardinals.
No, it's not good for the Cardinals. Every other month is a heater, which, guys, I don't know if you could do this math, but hot in July, cold in August, hot in September.
Maybe it's 20-game sample size, though, because it does seem like it's kind of like a 20 to 25-game stretch, and I'll have to do the math on if that ends up being a good or a bad thing for the Cardinals.
I think the full month of September is the 20 to 25 games.
I am curious, and 301-439-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. How are you guys enjoying the Nolan Gorman experience? Because it is different than anything we've really experienced since, like, Brandon Moss, but to a different degree, right? This is a better version of that. But we all remember the Brandon Moss September when everything went awry. Are you enjoying this, Alex?
I am not. Unfortunately, it's because it's I always know what's looming behind door number 2 with Nolan Gorman. Like this one. This is great. Watching him just smash baseballs every time he steps to the plate, I'm expecting something big to happen. But I also know that, boy, August is going to be real rough. And, like, if it's every other month, this feels like it's not a roller coaster where you've got the peaks and valleys. This is like you've got the peaks, but then, like, the valley you're going through is the roller coaster crashes, and you say, hey, risk my life on that one. Let's go back and try this again. There's hot and cold, and then there's extremities, and we're freaking awesome. Like you said, one of the best hitters in baseball, which is as exciting as can be. But the lesser end of it is not, well, he's at least competing. He needs to be benched for an entire month. And I'm sorry, but that is not fun. Like, it's not fun knowing what is coming, knowing, like, God, July is going to be great, but damn, August is going to suck.
I actually don't mind it.
Well, of course you don't, man.
One, I love Slug Baby Slug. But, like, when he's on fire, oh, my gosh, he's incredible to watch. But, like, what the nice part is with the way the Cardinals are kind of constructed right now with their lineup is when he's cold, it shouldn't kill you. You know, it's not like in years past where it's like Bader's our 5-hole hitter or Molina's our 5-hole hitter. If you had to have Gorman when he's in his cold stretch hitting in the top 5 of your order, you would be in trouble. The good thing for the Cardinals is they don't necessarily have that. He's hitting, the lineup just came out. Spoiler alert, if you're going to listen to the Fast Lane play the lineup game, he's hitting, I believe it was 8th today in this lineup against a lefty. Yeah, he's hitting 8th. Okay, you can survive that while he's still trying to get back into form. But guess what? Before long, he's going to be hitting cleanup again. And I don't mind that because he's going to be one of the best hitters on your team. So I personally don't mind it because you're built for it. You know who he reminds me of, another athlete in St. Louis, is Kyrou. Kyrou has his goals come in spurts, man. He goes through stretches where it's like 2 goals in like 15
Makes
games.
Makes sense why I don't like it. I don't like the Kyrou experience either.
And you know why I think a lot of Blues fans don't like it?
I like both.
Yeah, you do.
The Blues don't have like the depth of scoring to make up for it, to where they can kind of move him down the lineup. No, he's got to be up on the top line, and you just got to live with it.
Yeah, that's what Vladdy was. I mean, Vladdy went through those peaks and valleys too, where it was really good and then it was really bad, and you got to be okay with it. I'm fine with it if the team is consistent around it to where that's the only one, and that's the part where I probably think I don't like it, is because you don't have that consistency with this team. Now, it's been this way since Mother's Day, but over a 162-game schedule, the Cardinals don't feel like the team that can cover that massive hole that is relying on Nolan Gorman's bat to be there for you.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, I'm not excited by it, but this is just modern baseball. To a degree, Gorman takes it to the extreme, though. Like, this is modern baseball to the nth degree. He is very much I'm going to hit for power or I'm not hitting. Like, this season on the year, he's batting .205. Now, that's going to get better. This is the tough part with looking at Nolan Gorman's numbers at any point individually in the season. You just kind of got to get to the end of the season and see, okay, where's he at? Because he could be batting at any point in time like he was on June 4th, .235 with a slugging percentage of .500. Pretty damn good, right? That's June 4th. That was a month ago, almost exactly. He had an OPS at that point of .830. Well, then you look at it and you get a little further into the season. You go to June 28th. Not even a month later. He's batting .188 with an OPS of .672. So depending on when you look, he's either going to look like he's amazing relative to league average or terrible, because he's either in the midst of the hottest streak that you've seen by a Cardinals player or the worst stretch that we've seen since Brandon Moss in September. It kind of reminds me, I know the Riz Show does this as one of their punishments, where they do the jelly beans. And like every 20 games, you're putting a new jelly bean in your mouth when you're watching Nolan Gorman's performance, and it could be the stink bug, or it could be toasted marshmallow.
Or it could be cow poop.
It could be barf or peach.
Oh, barf, man.
It could be stinky socks or tutti frutti.
I love the fact that you're looking at the list right now.
Well, he knows what they are, man.
You never know what
Welcome
you're
to
going
our punishment this year.
On any, and it could be a dead fish or strawberry banana smoothie. Who knows?
Could be toothpaste, where it's always good, you know?
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know what it's going to be in any 20-game sample size, but you know the other one's coming. You know it's on the other side. If you don't like what you got with the liver and onions, well, that cappuccino is just on the other side, and you're going to enjoy that one a lot more. And I think you need it. Like, it sucks when you're watching the downturns, but this power, like, if you get a 20-game sample, Alex, in October, and it's a big if, you get the other side, you ain't going to like it a whole lot. But if you get the good version of Gorman in October, and you're going up against all these right-handed pitchers that we're talking about, that these other quality teams have in their rotation right now, dude, he can carry you to a World Series. That is what he's capable of doing. Because in the playoffs, he could have, a 20-game sample size where he goes 23 of 67, 3 doubles, 10 home runs, and boom, you're in the World Series. You're like, holy hell, what just happened? That's in his wheelhouse. There's like 30 players in baseball that you can say that about, and not all of them are in Nolan Gorman's caliber.
But the problem is, to stick with your jelly bean reference here, like, you're not playing roulette with Nolan Gorman, not sure what you're going to get. I know that every other month I'm going to be getting rotten eggs. Like, it is going to be, he is the worst hitter in baseball and should be benched.
It's coming.
Now, if you're fine with that because he's going to be so hot at the next
average over 162, though, it comes out with him probably being around a 750 OPS, and he's going to hit 30 home runs.
I understand, and on average that looks great, but like, it's a month-by-month basis with the team that is already an average team, and like, you can't have one of your better hitters that you're relying on be so bad because you're not good enough to cover that. Like,
but you need Donovan and Newt and Wynn and Contreras. All these guys that are batting ahead of him right now in the order, those are the guys that have to make up for it. They are the consistency. This is why I liked the construction of the Cardinals lineup coming into the season. Now, it's changed a lot because of what's happened with Walker and with Arenado and with Goldie. Those three bats not being what we expected them to be has really changed the complexion of this lineup. But basically everybody else has kind of become what we hoped they would be. Gorman is exactly what we all thought he was going to be coming into this season. Burleson's better. Wynn is better. Donovan is really good now, guys. Like, he's exactly what we were hoping he would be, and then some, honestly. Like, the other bats have kind of, they've been able to stabilize where Nolan Gorman is very much the fluctuating, and it's not even like every 20 games. Every 20 games you get a new version of him. So I like it, but it sucks.
Yeah, well, we'll see if people like it once you're getting into the playoffs and if he's not performing at that stage.
I mean, it's going to suck. We all know that, but this is what you sign up for with a guy like that. I mean, the alternative, I think the hard thing for me is like the alternative is a 250 hitter that doesn't hit for a whole lot of power, but he's consistently a 250 hitter. Guess who that is? It's Nolan Arenado. It's like, what do you prefer right now? Nolan Arenado, which has been a consistent 250 to 270 hitter all year long, or Nolan Gorman with the fluctuating on each given day? Because they have basically the same OPS today. But they came about it in a very different way, and I think one of those impacts winning more. I think Gorman has impacted your team winning more than Nolan Arenado has so far this year, personally.
And that's where I am, is because the way Arenado's playing, Arenado couldn't carry you for a 20-game stretch, or even in October. You know, Arenado right now would not be a guy that, like, you'd say, boy, if he gets hot, he's hitting 270, and he's, like, getting on base at a decent clip. Okay, that's nice, but what wins in October? What wins in modern baseball that I've been screaming for the last 5 years? Slug, baby, slug. And when Gorman's hot, and he's currently on pace for 31 home runs this season, which is unbelievable, he can win a 20-game stretch for you. He can get you through October. It's what Jock Peterson did for the Atlanta Braves. It's what Eddie Rosario did for the Atlanta Braves when those guys got hot. I'd much rather have the Gorman experience, even though it does have those flows where it really sucks.
You know who is kind of some of this, honestly, or has been in the past, and he was on the World Series winning team last year? Adolis Garcia.
Yeah.
He has a lot of the profile that Adolis Garcia had when it comes to like a ton of strikeouts. Gonna go through some significant slumps. But if you get him at the right time, you could have what he did last year in the postseason, where he had 8 home runs, finished with an OPS in the playoffs of 1,100, and ended up being a big reason why the Texas Rangers won the World Series a year ago. I don't know if the Cardinals are going to get that version of him, or if they're going to get the version that ends up striking out all the time in the playoffs. And if that does happen, they're probably going home. But that's the reality of playing in October, where weird stuff happens and guys show up or they don't, and then ultimately their legacies are defined by a few games of what they're able to do in that stretch of games. With Alex T-Bone, I'm BK. Junk Drawer coming up next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so there's a list that came out yesterday. This is putting together a compilation of a bunch of different critics. So it's got Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, all kinds of different places. They put it together and they get a composite score of the best television shows of all time. I'm curious how many of the top 5 you guys think that you could name on this list of the best TV shows that have ever been produced. Now, I will tell you, in the top 5, just as one little piece of getting you on the right track, all of them have been released within the last 25 years. So there's not anything that's like
Good.
Yeah,
crazy.
good, because, man, if I got to go back to, like, I Love Lucy here, I don't know if I'm going to be able to name those. Okay, so the 3 that come to mind right now, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos.
Hold on, let's go slow. Breaking Bad?
I didn't know I was going that fast there. Yes, Breaking Bad.
Bad.
Number 1.
Makes sense. Sopranos.
Number 4.
Makes sense. Game of Thrones.
Number 2.
Okay.
I thought
I've
Game of
done
Thrones
my
would be that
job.
high.
T-Bone, you figure out 3 and
The
4
Wire.
or
You got
5.
3 of the top 4. The Wire, I was surprised it's as low as it is. I think it's the best show that I've ever watched. I don't know if it's the most enjoyable show to watch, but I think it's the best constructed TV show ever. It is 6th on this
interesting.
list.
So we're missing what? 3
You're
and
missing
5?
3 and 5. I don't think you're going to get 3.
Are they
I think
all
it's a really
dramas?
great show. I'm a little surprised it's this high.
Are they all dramas?
They are dramas, and one is on HBO. The other, I think, was also on HBO, if I'm not mistaken. Originally.
HBO.
Is it, can you give me a hint as to who stars in it?
It's not like a big star-studded lineup. 3 is Chernobyl.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think you guys
seen
would have guessed that
I've
one.
never
No, I
seen
would
that.
have never
It's
guessed that.
amazing. If you guys have never seen that, it's really, really good.
Waterworld number 5?
No.
Oh, okay.
Number 5 is a war show.
Oh, Band of
Band of
Brothers.
Brothers.
Band of Brothers comes in at number 5. So your
I
top
should've
5,
thought of that.
Breaking
That one's
Bad,
really good.
Game of Thrones, Chernobyl, The Sopranos, Band of Brothers, and then the honorable mentions. Our guy Mike Ryder was in here. He was saying, Better Call Saul keeps rising up these ranks. It's at number 7 on this list.
Wow.
Stranger Things is 8.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sherlock, which I've never seen, is 9. Peaky Blinders, I could never get into. That's at number 10.
Where's
on
Sherlock's
this list?
That's the same Sherlock that I'm thinking of. That
From
one is
2010.
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
BBC?
It stars. Yeah, I think it's a British one, but
a
it
British
stars a young Benedict Cumberbatch, and he's really good.
People
in
are
it.
saying Chernobyl's great. Maybe
It's
I need
amazing.
to watch this.
It's
Yeah,
really,
maybe I
really,
need to
really
watch this. Where's Blacklist?
I don't.
Is that not on there?
I don't think that's going to be on
doubt
the
that
top
one
50.
made it.
I mean, I get it. Like, I loved it because we like binged watched it, but like I can understand it not being up there because like by the 5th season,
There
it started
are
to be.
very few network television shows that make.
I was just about to ask, like, because when I think like drama, the one that always
makes
pops in my
sense.
mind are like the medical dramas. Is there a medical drama?
I was
on-
gonna say
House
ER
is at number
House.
14
I'm
on this
connected.
list.
Yes, I've been addicted to
I
House
was gonna
lately.
say where's CSI because it feels like that's always around.
Succession is at number 18. That feels pretty low. I thought Succession was amazing. Mad Men was a show I never got
Yeah,
into.
I
know
hated
that's,
That when you said HBO originally, and that's why I asked who was in the
Yeah.
cast, I was like, surely Mad Men's not
Katie
top
keeps
5.
wanting to watch it, and I'm like, I have no
did
interest in
nothing
it.
for
Yeah,
me, man.
I watched the first
I
season.
tried really hard to get into it. That and the other one that should have been right up my alley, but I could never get into was Narcos. I don't
I've
know
never
why,
tried
but
it.
Narcos never.
Ozark was the other one for
Yep.
me.
We got into the second season like midway through. I was like, nah, I'm good.
I actually hated Ozark because you can only watch it at night. Because this like it's so like
yeah.
the filmography is so dark that you can't watch it in the daytime because you can't see anything.
You know
enjoyed
what I
Ozark.
thought was great was Mindhunter.
Loved Mindhunter.
I saw the
was
first season,
so
didn't watch
mad
the
that
second.
they canceled
ruined
it.
that, yeah, when they canceled it because that had the makings of such a great show. Katie and I were obsessed.
That one was at number 23 on this list. Black Mirror is another one. There's just never enough episodes of that. It's at 25, so that finished out the top 25. Show that T-Bone and I watched last year that's coming out with season 2 soon that made the top 30 was Severance on Apple TV. Apple's got a few pretty good shows now that are up.
I'm not sure I watched Severance.
Yeah, you did. The one.
Don't think so.
No? Oh, I thought I told you to watch
We
it. Never
watched.
mind.
You probably did tell me. and I
BK
went,
expects you to do what he says to
I
do,
know.
man. Come
I
on, you know how
the
this
show
damn
we
show
watched
works.
together on Apple was
So people are-
the Silo. That's the one I watched.
people are
Severance I
That
asking-
did
did
not make the
see.
top 50.
People are asking comedies.
Surprisingly not.
Seinfeld, Friends, The Office.
Yep. Seinfeld was at number 30 on this list. Other comedy. By the way, Lost came in at number 35 on this.
forgot about Lost.
I never got into that one.
Boardwalk Empire at 41, Atlanta at 42. Twin Peaks is comedy, that's at 44.
Boardwalk Empire.
Happy Valley at 46. Haunting of Hill House. You watched that, right?
Watched the
Alex?
first one, thought it was good. Second one sucked.
Americans came in at number 49. That feels low to me. I know T-Bone and I disagree on that show.
It
I
got
thought it
old.
was really, really good.
Once you get, it was kind of like what you were talking about with Blacklist. Once you get to like season 4, it's like okay,
It
let's
just gets
go.
repetitive.
Have you seen Fleabag?
No.
Apparently, it's
Never heard
got
of it.
really great reviews. It was top 12 on this list, but
Oh, I got a list of binges once this next kid gets here.
What's a recent show that you guys have watched that's been really good or that you've enjoyed?
I'm watching the morning show now with Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. I like it, but we're in the middle of season 2, so it's starting to get repetitive. But
I'm in the middle of 4 shows right now. It's tough balancing out.
Yeah.
I'm watching House.
4 shows?
Yeah, I'm streaming House, but a lot of them
What
are
a
new
life you
ones. Like
live.
I'm watching The Boys' new season. I'm watching that Presumed Innocence on Apple TV Plus.
Is that good?
I watched the first 2 episodes last night. It was really good.
Katie and I are into documentaries now.
See,
That's
you
what,
make fun of me.
No, not PBS documentaries.
Oh,
like
well, those are the best.
unsolved mysteries, like crime. Like we just watched
You guys
the one.
watched the World's Worst Roommate?
Watched that one, and then we just watched the one on the Sherry Papini. Have you seen this story?
Oh, that one's crazy.
Dude, that
one's
one was
insane.
intense. And so we just started last night, the TikTok murders. That one just came out on Peacock. We started that
I
one.
saw that. That one looked interesting.
Katie fell asleep 5 minutes in, so we'll get there.
We are currently in the midst of watching all of the World's Worst Roommates.
Yep.
I just watched something called Dark Matter on Apple TV. Better
Heard it.
concept than execution. It was
I'll say,
fine.
it looks
was interesting. But it's one of those that, like, you watch the first 2 episodes, you're like, man, I really wonder where this is going to go. And then you see the next 7 episodes, you're like, okay. Glad we're done. Came and went.
BK
Maybe
should
I'm not
get
gonna.
It has one season in it, and that's kind of it.
BK
Maybe
should
I'm
get
not
excited,
gonna
though,
watch
because
that.
there's a whole new season of Unsolved Mysteries coming out.
Oh, God, I hate that shit.
Yeah, I know, but we're
It
gonna
bothers
watch-
me so much.
We're going to figure them out
The
together.
whole concept is, hey, here's this amazing true crime. Can you help us find out what happened? It's like, wait, that's
the
your
whole-
job.
that's the whole premise of
point
it.
is for you to tell me what happened.
Oh, man.
I hate it.
The whole premise is
Absolutely.
you've got to figure it out.
Speaking of unsolved mysteries, should the Cardinals be looking at trading Jordan Walker at the deadline this year? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and it's time to unlock your inner champion today. The place to do so is at Victory Men's Health. They've got 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can check them out today at victorymenshealth.com. Super easy to do. Go to the website, top right corner, click book now. You'll put in your name, your email, your phone number. Tell them a little bit about what you're trying to do to unlock your inner champion today, and they could potentially help you out over there. When you go there, the first time that you go, they're going to take your blood. They'll do a blood draw. They'll be able to find out where your numbers are at. Is there an issue potentially with testosterone? Do you have a vitamin deficiency? They will also ask you about, hey, do you want to get your micronutrient levels tested? That's what I did whenever I went in for my first couple of appointments over there. They got me all hooked up. I've got vitamin B12 that I take now daily. They got me a new multivitamin that's helping me out, and a vitamin D supplement as well. My vitamin deficiencies are gone, and that's taken care of because of the great people over at Victory Men's Health. So check them out today. Again, 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can see them online at victorymenshealth.com. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so the question that Ben Fredrickson asked earlier today in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch is, should the Cardinals consider moving on from Jordan Walker at this year's trade deadline? My answer to that is pretty clearly no, but here's what Ben Fredrickson wrote in the Post. Quote, your phone lights up with a text message from a front office peer fishing for intel. The message asks, is Jordan Walker in play? What do you say? Do you shut it down or do you let the talk continue? There will be interest. What will be more interesting, though, is how the Cardinals respond. It could say a lot about this team's trade deadline direction, which almost always is the best read on how a front office truly feels about a team and its chances, end quote. Again, that comes from Ben Fredrickson in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today. Alex, my firm answer on this is I'm not trading Jordan Walker. Point blank, period. Crochet, available in trade, they're probably going to ask you for Jordan Walker, and my answer would be no. I'm not doing it. And the reason why is because I still believe, truly, that he has star potential at the major league level. He has not shown that this year. Didn't show it at the big league level, has not shown that at the AAA level, where he is batting right now .245 and has an OPS below 700, again, against AAA peers. That's not what you were looking for this year. He's 22 years old, and it appears that his development is heading in the wrong direction. But he's still 22 years old, man. It is unbelievably rare for a 21-year-old player to come to the big leagues the way that Jordan Walker did a year ago and bat .275 with an OPS that is well above league average, an OPS of 785, 16 home runs in 117 games. Now he's playing better defense as well. He's 6'6". He's 260 pounds. This guy has crazy power potential. He's got the ability to hit 300 in any individual season if his hit tool is what we think it is right now. I'm not trading that. I'm not trading that certainly for a pitcher, and that's probably what you would have to do at the deadline. So I'm holding on, and if that means that I depreciate the value of this specific prospect long term, so be it. I'm living and dying with Jordan Walker. He's my one guy in my system right now that has real, legitimate, tangible, all-star caliber upside. I need to see if it's going to work out. So I'm sticking with him. I would not trade him at the deadline, basically regardless of what's offered my way. What would you do?
I'm not going to hang the phone up. I think it's important to always listen to see what's out there because I do buy stock into the struggles that Jordan Walker is going through. Like, I don't think you can just gloss over and say, well, he's young and these were going to happen. I do think you have to look at it and say, okay, he hasn't made an adjustment, and we've seen other guys make adjustments like Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson. Why haven't we seen that from Jordan Walker yet? And that's why I'm listening. But, like, if we're talking Garrett Crochet, no, I'm not making that trade. Like, we got to be talking like Logan Gilbert-esque, where like the dude is dominated at the major league level and they're ready to move that. I don't think teams are going to do that for a guy that can't even figure it out in AAA. So essentially I'm getting to, I don't think you're going to trade him because nobody's going to pay what you deem reasonable to trade away Jordan Walker. But I don't think it's nope, hang up the phone as soon as another person says Jordan Walker. Because, like, yes, you're riding and dying with this, but at some point, riding and dying with this might actually hurt your organization moving forward because you were relying on him being a cornerstone, and him not becoming a cornerstone means now you're searching for the next Jordan Walker, and you weren't able to capitalize in another area with his development.
Yeah, I'm with BK. I don't even pick up the phone. If they say they want Jordan Walker, I'm hanging up or telling them wrong number. I am not moving him, and I understand, and I'm kind of with you. I'm starting to lose some faith in his development at AAA because he is 15% below league average down there now. But to me, he's the kind of prospect that this isn't a Dylan Carlson who's like a fringe top 100 prospect. This was a guy that was like top 10.
Carlson was top 20.
Not helping my case, but
I know. It always surprises me how high.
I was going to say Dylan Carlson was the Albert Pujols, just like Jordan Walker was.
But the difference for me was even when Carlson was coming up, like anybody that you talk to was like, "What's the comparable?" And it was like Andre Ethier, and like Andre Ethier was like, "Okay, so basically what you're telling me is we got a guy that hopefully is like good at everything but not great at anything." And that's what the case is for Walker. Of where it's different is if Jordan Walker hits his ceiling, you're talking about a guy that could be a huge freak of nature that can play great defense in the outfield, is a guy that can hit potentially like 30 home runs, be an MVP caliber guy. It's just a different ceiling. And that's why I'm with BK to where he either lives to his potential here in St. Louis or he flames out in your system and you just cut bait with him in like 5 years or whatever it is.
He becomes
from
the next Alex Reyes.
Exactly.
So be it.
And that's the case. And I thought they did it right with Alex Reyes, to where he was such a highly touted pitching prospect that had unbelievable stuff. And when he was healthy for that one season here in St. Louis, you saw it play out of the pen. that's the kind of guy that you just let flame out in your system if it doesn't end up working, because I don't want to trade him and watch him actually become the superstar that I knew he was capable of becoming.
So we have had a lot of people bring up the comparison that you guys mentioned with Dylan Carlson. And like I think it's always important to remember what kinds of prospects they were, not in terms of the ranking, because people are right. Dylan Carlson was a highly regarded prospect. By Baseball America going into 2021, he was the number 9 prospect in
He was the
all
cold
of
dead
baseball.
hands player for John Mozeliak.
MLB.com had him at number 13. And this is not just in the Cardinal system. This is in every system for anybody. He was the number 13 prospect in baseball. Baseball Prospectus had him at number 16. So unanimously a top 15-ish prospect in baseball.
I'm questioning the scouts.
The difference, though, is how they were viewed in terms of what they would be when they got to the big league level. Dylan Carlson was thought of as a guy that was going to be a really good all-around player, a guy that can consistently be in your outfield and maybe makes a couple of all-star games. You're always happy with him being a plus starter in your outfield. And that sometimes can get you to that level of prospect status when he's doing what he did at AA and AAA at the age of 20 years old. He had an OPS of 1,100 in 2019 at the AAA level. He was amazing that year, guys. Super productive. But again, the expectation was really good player, not necessarily star potential. Walker was different. Walker was about dreaming on the tools. Walker was about, look at the production he's putting together, and he still has so much more room to grow. This guy could be an MVP candidate if everything comes together. People just didn't know if it was going to. And then at AA, he had a crazy good year that looked very similar to what Dylan Carlson did. The difference is the tangible numbers that they're producing in terms of like the underlying stuff. Carlson never hit the ball hard. He just didn't. That's not the kind of hitter that he was. He also didn't have the room to grow into a frame like Jordan Walker does. Walker hits the ball unbelievably hard. And just look at the guy, guys. Like you can go stand next to Dylan Carlson and Jordan Walker. It does not look like you're standing next to the same types of players. So for me, I've always viewed Walker as having a much higher ceiling than Dylan Carlson. I even view Jordan Walker as still having a higher ceiling than Mason Wynn. I think Mason Wynn can be an all-star caliber shortstop for you for the next 10 years. I think Walker is the one guy on your roster right now has the chance to win an MVP in a Cardinals uniform that you have produced through the Cardinals minor league development system. So I'm not trading that guy. I'm just not. And you're probably going to get some good offers. Like somebody said, would you guys trade him for Tariq Skubal? No, I'm not. There's too much risk there because Skubal can come in and maybe he's great for you the rest of this year. He's an awesome pitcher. He could next year never throw another pitch for you again. Like that's on the table for any of these pitchers that you're trading for. And I'm not trading a potentially proven position player with 6 years of club control for a dude that has that much uncertainty.
I was just going to say, though, couldn't I say the same thing about Jordan Walker? That dude never hits his potential at the major league level again?
He did the last year.
I get it, but couldn't I say that he never gets to that? Because Dylan Carlson did it for 1 year and then was never the same guy.
I'm not worried about the injuries. That's the difference.
I'm not worried
for a pitcher, I'm always worried about the injury. The injury is one step away at all times. The position player, I can just look across baseball and look at how much less variance there is position player wise than there is with the pitching. Look at the leaderboard this year for ERA among the pitchers. And now think about what that leaderboard looked like 3 years ago and look at all of the turnover. Now go do the same thing on position players. There's much less turnover position player wise. I don't want this to come off like I'm trying to trade Jordan Walker because I'm not, but my whole thought process with this is nobody on this team right now is untouchable in my opinion. And I don't think anybody can be untouchable on this team. I mean, I would say Mason Wynn is more untouchable than Jordan Walker right now for how he's performing at the major league level. I'm not trading either, so I'm with you.
I'm with you, but I just, if somebody's going to call and offer me a Godfather offer, I can't hang up the phone for the justice of the future of my organization. And I just believe that because we haven't seen that alteration from Jordan Walker, it's hard for me to look at that and say, can't trade that guy.
I think, too, it just depends on where you're at as an organization. Like I said the Cardinals need 2 starting pitchers. I actually believe that. But BK's right, they're not going to do it because they're not at the point where they need to start salvaging the farm to go win. If they were at the spot where, the Philadelphia is this year, if they flip records with the Philadelphia Phillies and they were the best team in the National League, now you're talking. Now you're going to have that conversation of what can we go get for a Jordan Walker? Because though, yes, we still want that MVP in our system potentially, we're in win now mode and we need to go push for a World Series. Cardinals aren't there. They're multiple steps away from being a World Series contender. They can be a threat in October.
Sure.
But to be a threat in October, I'm not giving up Jordan Walker for a guy that could help me eventually in 5 years, 5 years, get to that point that we're talking about of being a World Series contender.
Alex, I think the guy that you're thinking of is Garrett Crochet. I still don't believe that he's going to end up getting traded this year at the deadline. I think that's an offseason move for the White Sox. But if the White Sox call you and say, hey, Garrett Crochet, he's a 6'6", 250-pound strapping left-handed pitcher.
Sounds like a mongoon.
A stud, has done everything you could possibly ask for from him this year. He's striking out the world, has 150 strikeouts in 150 innings. Or in 150 strikeouts in 100 innings. He has a 3.0 ERA. Nobody gets hits off of this dude. He's amazing. He's very young, lots of cost control remaining for him, but we're going to need Jordan Walker plus. My answer is no. I'm not doing it. You would listen on that?
I'd listen on it. I'd have to find out what that plus is, because if we're going plus in terms of other impactful prospects on my team, no, I'm not doing that. I think if it's Jordan Walker for Garrett Crochet, yeah, I'm going to have to listen to it, because I have to weigh all of my options. I have to bring everybody into this conversation, guys that are working with them at the minor league level, guys at the major league level, other players that have seen Jordan Walker. Can this guy fix what his issues are? And if you believe that there's still potential there, then no. But if you believe, if there are others that believe in this organization that Jordan Walker, the fact that he has not made this transition, and listen to John Mozeliak on Sunday talking about it, like, it's seemingly, if you read between the lines, there's a little concern that he hasn't adapted to what the issues were. And
that's my biggest concern, by the way, is coachability. I like Jordan Walker, and like you listen to him in interviews, that kid is super bright. My biggest concern is he really listening to what is hindering his performance right now? Is he taking it all in? Because eventually there's going to have to be a change. There has to be. Otherwise, the production's not going to follow, and he needs the production. So that's my biggest concern.
And that's why I'm going to really have to weigh these options, because if I don't believe he is going to ever hit that potential, I have to seriously consider, because now I'm making my team better for the now and for the next few years. And yeah, injuries pop up. But if I don't believe he's going to adapt that quickly, how impactful is Jordan Walker going to be for the next couple of years? So yeah, I'm not hanging that phone up. I'm seriously having a war room conversation with my entire organization to find out if this guy is the real deal.
Last thing on this, somebody on the text line said, guys, if you're not trading him, then what are your trade chips that you could potentially use at the deadline? I think you're looking at Ivan Herrera. I think he's potentially a trade chip for you this year at the deadline. Carlson, I think, is absolutely a trade chip. We'll see on Edman potentially as a trade chip, depending on what the health is there, how people value a player like that. And then I think you dip into your minor league system. I think you're looking at like Thomas Ajayci. A bunch of the AAA arms are interesting. You have Cooper Jerpy, who's been awesome for you so far this year. I think you've got trade chips. If you want to go into your system and get not a Garrett Crochet, but if you want to go get a Eric Fetty, you want to go get Nathan Eovaldi, you've got the kinds of arms, you've got the kinds of talent right now in your minor league system without gutting it to be able to go make those kinds of moves. And last year's deadline, getting a bunch of pitching in return helps you in that regard. And then last year's draft also helps you in that regard, where you've got somebody like Quinn Matthews who's gone through your system rapidly. So you've got a surplus of arms and the mid-level pitching kind of pipeline that you can trade from, and you've got a couple of position players that you can go into depending on what other teams want in return. He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we were pretty excited at the time about Kapanen and Vrana being additions for the Blues at the deadline a year ago. How do Joseph and Faksa compare to them in terms of what they could potentially bring to the Blues from what we felt at the time that Kapanen and Vrana were added to this team? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, taking care of the Ferrario family with our home and car insurance. And look, with the team over at Allstate, there are so many factors that come into play of why you switch over to Tracy Bibb. One is the availability of Tracy Bibb. Whenever you need something, she's there for you. She's contacting us, letting us know, hey, this is what's going on with your insurance coverage, or hey, just so you know, this is available to you, or this won't be there this next time around. But when there's a problem, she's always available. We had an issue a couple of months ago after some storms and some bad wind. It knocked down a large tree branch that took a massive blow on our shed. Called Tracy up. We had the problem solved that weekend. So that's the best part about Tracy Bibb. But they're always offering competitive rates. She's always helping you out. So all you need to do, give her a call today. Tell her Alex Ferrario sent you and ask about a non-committal free quote. She'll walk you through the entire process, and she'll even cancel your insurance if you decide to go with Tracy Bibb and her team. 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So I was thinking about this, Alex, over the weekend. We had a lot of conversations last week as we were out at the Blues development camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. By the way, if you guys want to go check out our interviews from development camp, you can check those out at 101ESPN.com, free 101 ESPN app as well. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Blues made a couple of significant moves via trade. They added Joseph and Faksa, two guys that are going to potentially fill into their top 9 forward group-wise. They had a need. They went out and they plugged it with, let's be honest, guys that are stopgaps. They're going to come in, they're going to help you play a certain style, and the Blues are hoping, hey, these guys can come in and maintain what we're trying to build. The same was true of Kappy and Vrana a couple of years ago at the deadline, where the Blues went out and at the deadline, they basically got their off-season shopping done. So we're going to get Kappy via a waiver claim, I believe it was, and Vrana via a salary dump kind of a trade from Detroit. There was upside there, but you knew, you're buying low. Let's see if there's anything here. When you look back at how you felt about Kappy and Vrana at the time and how you feel currently about Joseph and Faksa, Alex, which one did you feel better about heading into the additions at the time that they made them?
The time that they made them, I felt better about Kappy and Vrana because, one, both were former first-round draft picks, which, I mean, I know some people look at that and say, okay, but there's something to former first-round draft picks, why they were selected so high. And two, and I know I sound crazy and still sound crazy, but I was told multiple times that the expectations for Vrana was 40 goals in a season. That was with the Detroit Red Wings before they traded him and he had to go for the player assistance program. It was, this guy's a 40-goal scorer. And it never came to fruition. But at the time, I looked at this and said, you just acquired 2 guys that could play in your top 9 with one of them playing in your top 6. And at the end of the season when they acquired them, both looked like that. Yep. Last season was a massive dud, but there were a ton of other reasons why that team struggled than just Vrana and Kappy. But if you're giving me Joseph, Faksa, and Texier at the time of the moves, or Vrana and Kappy, I'm taking the Vrana and Kappy because I've got potential 40-goal scores. But I think by the end of this, the better bang for your buck is what you just did in this offseason. because you've got two guys that know their roles, play their roles well, and can fix the massive holes that you had this past season in terms of your bottom six. And I think that there's a lot to be expected with Texier. JR and I were with Donnie on the Last Minute Blues podcast we recorded earlier today, and JR talked with Aaron Portzline, who covers the Columbus Blue Jackets, and apparently Texier had to step away from the Columbus Blue Jackets, not player assistance program, but was dealing with somewhat of depression and stepped away from the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Portzline had said when he returned from playing over in Europe that he just didn't look like the same player. So that's a guy that's 24 years old that was drafted in the second round that has upside. I think better bang for your buck after the fact is going to be the 3 moves that you made this offseason.
It's interesting. I view them so differently. I think Texier is maybe more in line with a Vrana/Kapanen type of an addition. I think what they have in Matthew Joseph and Radek Faksa, I think they made these moves because of what they learned from Vrana and Kapanen, from making those moves. What I mean by that is I think these guys know exactly what their role is. I think Vrana and Kapanen were always hoping for a little bit more. I think Kapanen,
and they got a taste of that when they were acquired at the deadline, and then they diminished from it the next season.
You look at what Kapanen was back in 2019 with Toronto. He was a 20-goal scorer, 45 points, ended up playing about 17 minutes a night at that point. And once you experience that and you are that guy for a team like Toronto, you probably always have in the back of your mind, that's the player that I am capable of being. And so you always want to be that again. And when it doesn't happen for you, it can get frustrating. Jakub Vrana, he told JR what he is. He said, listen, I'm here to score goals. Unfortunately, he didn't score very many of them, and he had all of the downside of a pure goal scorer without any of the upside. It's like if when Nolan Gorman's not performing well, that's what Jakub Vrana was last year. And it obviously did not work.
It's like Nolan Gorman coming to the ballpark and saying, I don't play defense, I hit the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Faksa and Joseph know exactly who they are.
Absolutely.
They know exactly what they are here to do. They're going to play a gritty style of hockey. They're going to produce 10 to 15 goals. They're going to be penalty killers for you. They are the connective tissue of a hockey team. You need guys like this. It ain't sexy. I don't think this is a Stanley Cup contender, and so they may end up getting traded at the deadline and flipped for assets. It's totally possible. But I think what they learned from the Vrana and Kapanen deals a couple of years ago probably had a pretty significant influence in making these kinds of deals now. These are about floor. Kapanen and Vrana were about potentially getting something from their ceiling. And now your ceiling route is the prospects in your system. You didn't have those prospects playing when you got Kapanen and Vrana. Now you do. So now we need guys that are raising the floor to play along with those prospects.
It's just nice to eliminate areas that you don't have to worry about. Like right now, the concern for this Blues team is your defense and how your top six performs, because that's what's driving this team. Last year, it was those factors on top of, can our bottom six be a contribution to our success? And you didn't get that. Kevin Hayes wasn't it. Kapanen wasn't it. Ferrano wasn't it. And your fourth line, it was kind of a revolving door until you started to get a little bit more settled with players. Now you're not even worried about your bottom six. Now you're like, we know what this looks like. We have them plugged in. And now we just worry about your defense and your top six. That is the focus now for the team going into next season. And that's what you're going to be made or you're going to lose with.
Yeah. Now you can focus on your second line. And that's where they got to figure it out now, is because the second line, they don't have a second line. They've got 3 third lines. 2 third lines and a fourth line is what they have right now, essentially. Because Braden Shen, ideally, would be a third line center or on a wing. Brandon Saad on a contenders on the third line. That's why, I agree with what you said. I think the move for Vrana and Kapanen, and in hindsight, what they did at the time, it made sense because it was a ceiling one. These are the kind of moves that kind of raise the floor, help you kind of prevent that bottoming out to where it is, okay, well, suddenly we've sent Vrana down to Springfield. What do we do with his spot?
So last question that I have for you, Alex, on the Blues, and it pertains to some of these moves, because these are guys that you're expecting to be with you on opening night. What does this mean for Dvorsky? We talked about this a little bit last week, and every time that you talk to Doug Armstrong, if you ask about a center position, the last thing that he will say, and he does it with a smile and a laugh every single time, is, don't forget about Dvorsky. Don't forget about Dvorsky. And we don't know what the plans are there. That they hope he comes in, kicks the door down, and announces his presence with authority. And it's possible he does. What if you leave camp and you're like, you know what? He's probably our best third line center. I don't think he's ready to be a top 6 forward for us right now, but he can be a third line center for us. Is it worth adding Dvorsky to the roster if he's not in your top 6?
I think it is, but you have to find out if he can be a difference maker in that role. So, like, development camp, prospect scrimmage that they did, he was night and day better than every single player on the ice. Like, he was a step or two above everyone else, and now it comes down to training camp. I've always used the comp, and I'm going to stick to it, and hopefully I don't have to eat crow with this. I look at what Wyatt Johnston did with Dallas when he was 19 years old. The guy played 15 minutes average in that season, played every single game. He was essentially their second line or their third line center, and he put up 24 goals and 41 points for that team. I don't know if Dvorsky is that, but Robert Thomas did 33 points when he was 18 years old in that first season where he was a rookie, and he was on the third line playing with Tyler Bozak and Pat Maroon. Yeah. If you can get in between those two, I think that's great for your development. But if you're not getting consistent time in the top 6 because of what's around you, like we're talking about Radek Faksa on the third line and Texier and Matthew Joseph, I think I would much rather sit there and say, you know what, let's slow play this thing and let's keep him in the minors. Let's let him be the number 1 centerman for the American Hockey League this season so that when he's up, he's taking over a top 6 role. And if this guy outplays Braden Shen and Pavel Buchnevich in camp, then I start him the season and I let him give his entire season to the NHL roster to see what's there.
I actually don't think he needs to be in the top 6 for me to be on the roster, just because I think this is the year, we've talked about this, where it is you're probably going to be worse before you get better. And if that's the case, I want the kids up here playing. I think it is more beneficial for Dvorsky to be playing on the third line, learning how to play in the NHL with some veterans around him that he can talk to, whether that is his line mates or even someone like a Braden Shen, for example, than to be at the AHL. To me, he does not benefit as much at the AHL than he would to play here at the NHL level to do what Robert Thomas did. Be on the third line, center it, get your feet wet, and now you know what to expect. What is it like to be a pro on an everyday basis for an 82-game season? That's why I want Bolduc on this team. That's why I want Zach Dean to be on this team. I would prefer that he be on the NHL roster if that's the case. If this is going to be a retool and a retooling year for sure, him being in the third line center role, I'm okay with that.
My one concern is, can you get the most out of him in a third line role? And it's not because of how often he's playing or anything like that. It's who he's playing with. Like, can you get the most out of Dvorsky if his wingers are Joseph, Texier, Kapanen, and Bolduc? Because those are probably the guys that you're cycling through as his wingers. I don't know the answer to that. I would much prefer him to be in a top 6 role for that reason, but it also brings together, like, when you put him in the top 6, now the matchups are much more difficult. Now there's a lot more responsibility on his behalf. Like, it's tough. It goes back to the Robert Thomas thing. Can he get the most out of himself with these guys being his wingers? Robert Thomas didn't have the most ideal situation in that regard either. However, it ended up working out well for his development. So it's up to the Blues on what the best path forward is for them. He's Alex T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, are we ever going to see a dynasty again, like what the Warriors were just able to accomplish? Talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendricks near the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals beat the Nationals yesterday 8-3. They try to take 3 of 4 from Washington as they wrap up their 4-game set today. 3:05 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis is on the mound for St. Louis. And the Cardinals made a roster move earlier today. Lars Nootbaar was activated from the IL, and Jose Fermin was optioned down. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Were the Warriors the last of their kind? That's something that Steph Curry was asked about the other day, and he said, obviously, defining a dynasty can take different looks. People thought this was over back in 2019, but 2022 was an amazing championship because we defied all of the odds. 11 years, almost 12 years of championship relevancy built around a specific core. I don't think it'll ever be replicated just because it's very hard to keep things together in this league. A lot more player movement. Me, Clay, Draymond, we complemented each other so well for so long. We brought a lot to the table, so we'll see. Records are meant to be broken. Dynasty comes in all shapes and sizes. We will see. Alex, I think he's got a really good point. And part of this gets into the nitty-gritty of the new CBA, and we don't have to dive deep into this, but if you're an NBA fan, you know the second apron. You've probably heard that phrase a million different times over the last couple of weeks leading into the offseason and then certainly during free agency. It's dictating a lot of what teams are able to do this year and beyond. Next year, it gets even more restrictive. This is year one of some of the restrictions for teams. Next year, it's even harder to operate whenever you get that high into the luxury tax. The Warriors have been and were always at that point into the luxury tax. They not only had the 3 guys in Clay, Steph, and Draymond, they also at one point added another future Hall of Famer to the mix in Kevin Durant, and they had a lot of depth. They were able to bring in really good role players, whether it was developed guys or guys that they were bringing in via free agency or trade. Yeah, like they had some really good players that were depth with them. That, I think, is the biggest difference as to what's going to change and what's going to be difficult moving forward to replicate what the Warriors were under these new rules. I think the Celtics have like one more year of being this team, and then they're going to have to break it up. They won't break up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They'll have those guys, but the rest of the roster will have to disintegrate, essentially. They're going to have to send things off for spare parts. I do think that's what's different about the Warriors, and I don't think we're going to see another dynasty like that unless these rules change again in the immediate future.
That's the biggest thing. You're going to have the rules change because since you can't allocate the salary to these certain players, you can't go out there and sign the 3 stars or even trade for the 3 stars because you have to offset other types of money. So unless they change the rules, which, like, I understand what they're doing because these owners are like, I can't keep paying all of this money and we've got to fix this, so this is how we're going to accomplish it. But at some point, the NBA has to find a way to work around that because what I feel like, and we were talking about this in the office, the NBA has always had super teams. Like, you've always had some type of super team that's dominated the league. And if you just get away from the super team and go with, we'll just go with the big 2 and then just depth pieces from there, personally, and I'm not the biggest NBA fan, but personally it feels like that it's going to start to disintegrate the excitement around the team. Like you lose those teams that you love to hate, like the Golden State Warriors, like what the Detroit Pistons were, the Lakers were, the Celtics were, because the super teams, the Heat.
This is what makes the NBA what it is.
The
for better
super
or
teams
worse,
are who you demise. Like you hate those teams, and that's why you're watching.
Who's that team right now? Who's the team that people hate in the NBA? It could be the Celtics, I suppose. I don't find them to be particularly compelling, though, in that way.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's the Lakers, and it's more just because LeBron's son got drafted. Yeah. It's not because they're a super team,
it's all the circus that goes along with it. Like, who's the team that you get into the playoffs, and people are watching the games because they want them to lose? Because that was the Heat. Like, it was the Warriors. Everybody had that team for a while, and then suddenly, starting in basically 2021, when the Suns and the Bucks got to the NBA Finals, it's changed, and that has no longer been the case. Like, even the Warriors in 2022, that was almost a different story because you knew this is probably the last time we're going to see this version of the Warriors getting to the finals. And it was ultimately the quote-unquote end of their dynasty. the Nuggets, the Heat, like those teams, the new versions of them weren't hateable. The Mavericks and Celtics, what are we talking about here?
No.
I think the league is going to struggle to find that next team until it has somebody break the mold and get to titles multiple times over. It's gonna require that. That's how this league is built, for better or worse.
Now, I still believe you're going to see somebody find a way to create a super team. It's just going to be extremely hard and very rare. It's not going to be, to me, like it has been in years past, where it was you went from one super team to the next, where they were built over time together. I think now it's going to be, okay, here's one super team, whoever it may be. They spend, they go above and beyond, and they do all of this, and then there's a gap. 5 years between super teams, and then you get that other one that emerges.
We might be in that gap right now.
And I wonder if that's where we are. And to your question of like, who's the team that you hate right now in the NBA? I mean, it feels more player based than it is team based right now because of that. Maybe Phoenix has a little of that, but even then, that's more KD than it is anybody else that you're hating with the Phoenix Suns. So
I think what he maybe was getting at, though, the player movement part is maybe the most interesting thing to me. Like, you could have a dynasty that comes together for like a 3 to 5 year stretch, and they have their success and whatever. What made the Warriors so unique, set aside Kevin Durant, I know it's hard to do, but set aside that for a second. Their key contributors were drafted and developed by the organization. Yeah. And they stayed there basically the entirety of their careers.
It's what the Spurs did, where he was Parker, Duncan, Ginobili, that group.
The closest thing to that is the Celtics, where you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but the third guy isn't there. And that is what was really unique about the Warriors, is those guys were drafted there, stayed there, and got max contracts there. And I'm not sure we're going to see that anymore because players just don't do that. Like, who are the guys that you get 3 stars that all get their money, take a little less for the team? They get theirs, don't get me wrong. But they stick with the team and they have a ton of success accordingly. That's going to be the hard part. Like the Nuggets maybe are the team that would be the closest
Oklahoma
thing to that
City.
with Murray, Jokic, and Michael Porter Jr. That's probably the closest thing that we have right now in the NBA.
Or OKC building towards it, but
I don't think they're going to pay it, though.
Probably not. I don't know if you're going to be able to in this new rule set, but
especially in that market.
I don't even know if that, and like, yes, that's the fun side of it. I don't know, though, if that's how you get the hated teams. I think you get the hated teams, one, by getting there and winning so many times, but two, you get the guys that are going for the big payday, that are going for all of the money away from the team that they were with.
Warriors LeBron Miami thing.
Yeah.
The bought not earned.
The Warriors
that
were
was the
likable.
San Antonio versus Miami.
I didn't hate the Warriors until Durant went.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I was like, okay, screw these guys.
Yeah, and that's what it is for me. Is I think when you make the free agent signings, when you homegrown and develop it, it becomes the fun story of, wow, that's awesome. Look what they did. The moment you bring somebody in from the outside, that's when it goes haywire to where people love to hate you.
He's Tanner. That's Alex on BK. Coming up next, we're going to get to the BK and Ferrario Rewind with the way that they're going to approach this outfield configuration now that they do have Lars Nootbaar back. Ollie had an interesting comment on it next year on 101 ESPN. So John Denton is reporting from Washington, D.C., where the Cardinals have activated today Lars Nootbaar. He's going to be in the lineup. The guys on the fast lane will play the lineup game a little bit later on the fast lane. I imagine that's coming up here in just a few minutes, so I won't give you the full lineup. I will tell you that Lars Nootbaar is in said lineup, though. And Ollie Marmol was asked about the club's best defensive outfield. He said right now he views that as Brendan Donovan in left, Michael Ciani in center, and Lars Nootbaar in right. He added that he considers Alec Burleson to be an everyday player. He wants him in the lineup as much as possible as either a DH or a corner outfielder. Alex, I would add first base as well into that mix.
Absolutely.
If that means getting Paul Goldschmidt one day off of his feet per week and either having him at DH or just giving him the full day off, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing at this point. Burleson's a better hitter than Goldie. I'm fine with
I
it.
think you could do multiple days off, one where he's a DH and another where he's just completely out of the lineup.
I also kind of want Burleson getting regular reps at first base because I think that's going to be his primary position a year from now.
Agreed.
So I don't mind any of that. But I agree with his assessment. Donnie, Ciani, Newt, that's your outfield right now until further notice.
Damn, Newt, you got to have something. Can we call him Newty or something like that? Because you can't have a Donnie, Ciani, and then a guy that just ends in Newt. Like, come on, man. It's like a hockey line out there. I'm with you. When Tommy Edman returns, I still believe your best outfield includes Michael Ciani and the other two guys in the corner spot. I don't believe there's anybody that offsets one of those three unless you get Jordan Walker back with his offense. That offsets probably Michael Ciani, and you're moving, although I think you need the defense in center field with that guy. But
that's a conversation that's definitely
to
pretty far
me,
down the road.
You could get it back to full strength with all of the health. My three outfielders will be Donovan, Ciani, and Lars Nootbaar, and just finding a spot for Alec Burleson. We talked so much about Donovan being the utility guy that you kind of move around. That's Burleson now. Burleson, for a couple of games, you get maybe an outfield to give guys days off. You move to DH, you get first base. For now, if I want to keep winning baseball games and, avoid that minus run differential, getting more in the red, I need Ciani, Donovan, and Nootbaar in my outfield.
My only quibble with that, and this is probably at least a couple of weeks off, it sounds like Tommy Edman is expected to start his rehab assignment tomorrow, and I would think it's going to be a pretty extended one, like a couple of weeks. I would say probably post-All-Star break is when you can expect him back. I would probably platoon them in center field with Ciani and Edman, where Ciani's starting against right-handed pitchers, Edman is starting against lefties, but that also depends on how Edman is doing, how he looks. So there's a lot there. But for now, I agree that this is the way that you go with it. And even when Edman gets back, Ciani's got a role on this team as a center fielder for you. The other thing is, I don't think right now there's a whole lot to question about it. Your bench right now is Pages, Crawford, Carlson, and Carpenter.
Oof.
Those guys aren't starting for me. There's nobody from that group of players that's going to be pushing anybody that we just mentioned. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is when Ivan Herrera gets back. And I wouldn't think he's too far away. He's probably a few days away, honestly. He's got a few more rehab assignment games in him. But after that, that's when, with the DH potentially being filled by Contreras and Burleson and Ivan Herrera, now things get a little bit more complicated. That's when things get interesting for them.
And I think originally when that happens is Herrera just becomes the pinch hitter. When Ciani's spot comes up late in the game, how often does it where the lineup ends up being at the bottom when you need him in a big spot? Boom, you pinch hit.
He's Albert Pujols.
Exactly. And hopefully that Pujols
I'm not saying Herrera is Pujols. That's
we
the
got
role.
Another one?
That's the role
Man,
that he's going to be filling.
Walker, and Ivan Herrera. Hot damn.
Cardinals back in action later on this afternoon. It's the final game of this 4-game set in Washington. They have already clinched at least a split, hoping to get a series victory. It's Miles Michaelis on the mound, another lefty on the mound for the Washington Nationals. The Fast Lane will give you the lineup for that game coming up here in just a little bit. We will talk to Katie Wu tomorrow because I messed up today and forgot that she was on the rundown, so we'll talk to Katie Wu tomorrow.
Unbelievable.
We'll also talk to John Morosi later on this week as well. Lots more to come for you guys. So for Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Good to be back with you for a full week here on BK and Ferrario. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.